Gaming news today is all about the Ghost of Yotei reviews, and I might have hit a bullseye. People were asking me what my prediction was yesterday for the score on Metacritic and OpenCritic, and I said that I thought it was going to be an 87. Well, it seems to be hitting right there. My contention was basically that it only takes a handful of outlets that were a little more tepid, maybe a little bit more burned on the franchise or the genre or what have you, to pull the score down. And just this morning, in Morning Coffee, a segment for my members, if you want to be there, make sure you hit join and pick Member Plus. But I showed them. We scrolled through all the hundreds and just tons of 90s and 95s and 85s and 80s. And there was only like 6 scores that were either like a 70 or a 60. And that's all. It was a very small amount, but that's all it takes to pull the score down. That is just basic a math equation, right? There's nothing wrong with people scoring the game, lower, or maybe they just didn't like it as much. That's just bound to happen. I just think this franchise, this genre in particular, is always going to struggle to hold on to a 90. I will say an 87 is an incredible score. We're going to look at some of the reviews. We're going to look at the highest and the lowest and everything in between to get sort of barometer on where this game is landing. The original Ghost of Tsushima got an 83. Its director's cut then went on to get an 86. I think it sort of aged like a fine wine and improved some things. And this landing at an 87 is actually a very good score, so it makes me very excited. One of the most exciting things that have come out of all of the Ghost of Yotei reviews that are out there, Digital Foundry saying, one pleasant surprise was that you can turn on ray tracing global illumination and get 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro. You know that I was preaching that about AC Shadows is one of the best looking games this gen because you can do that. You can run the global illumination and maintain 60 FPS. The fact that I'm going to be able to do that in Ghost of Yotei gameplay has me thrilled. So the fact that it scored higher and it has that level of graphical visual lift is, to me, very exciting. We just watched the Sony PlayStation State of Play yesterday, and the Saros gameplay blew me away, and the Wolverine trailer blew me away, and now Ghost of Yotei is a week away. So as a fan of Returnal, and Saros is coming very soon, and then as a fan of Tsushima, Yotei doing this well, I couldn't be happier as fans of these franchises. Currently on OpenCritic, it has an 88, only 61 reviews there, though. So there's already 97 reviews that have come in for Ghost of Yotei. So the score will likely not change. That's too many scores coming in. It could drop to an 86. That would be unusual. That would mean a bunch of low scores just suddenly come in. Once you have about 100 scores, it's not going to move. It's a pretty strong score. So, like, if a bunch of good scores come in, probably won't lift it. If a couple of bad scores come in, it probably won't lower it. So we'll monitor this, obviously, throughout the stream. Now, if you're watching this later, do me a favor and hit the like button. I'm going to pause the thing that nobody likes, and that does support me directly. Let's get the goal up on screen. You guys are crushing it for a Thursday. Han shot first, and so did you. First gifted coming in from what in the world happened there? I dragged the alert images over. Let's try that again. Let's get Han to pop out there. There he is. The oh so handsome Harrison Ford. Let's get that going there. Boom. And then we are now at 452. So what I want to start with, as I typically do, is I want to start with the lowest score first. And this does get a little complicated, okay? It gets a little bit complicated because some of these websites use a 5-point system, a 5-star system, as it were. Well, what that's going to do is when it gets over there to Metacritic's just a tool, an aggregate. It's just going to calculate. So a 3 out of 5 goes over to Metacritic and lands as a 60%. Now, that doesn't mean that the person who wrote this article thinks, oh yeah, 60%, it's basically a failing grade. They're giving it like a middle-of-the-road score. Like, they see 3 out of 5 as being like, yeah, this isn't award-winning. Maybe they're more tepid, as I said, which I think is common for games like this. So I think that is one of the flaws with using a system like Metacritic. Metacritic is not there to actually tell you what the value or quality of the game is. It's just a tool to give you a rough snapshot, a rough barometer of what the outlets thought. Landing in an 87, though, does call into question, will Ghost of Yotei get a Game of the Year nomination? The fact that Sucker Punch's sequel got an 87 and that might not be strong enough for a Game of the Year nomination means that we have had an incredible year in gaming. Like, really listen to what I said. Sucker Punch, a great dev team with a great game in Tsushima, made a sequel that scored better than the first game, and it might not be good enough. I mean, Hades 2 took a spot, obviously. We know Expedition 33 is up there in the running with tons of other games that have received incredible scores. There's games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. There's Death Stranding 2. There's little breakout titles as well. There's Silksong. That's not a little breakout title, but there's little breakout titles like Blueprints. So there's a lot going on. And that's something that's worth celebrating. If your favorite game doesn't get a nomination this year, I would say that is worth celebrating. It means there were so many good games. I'm even kind of wondering, will they expand the amount of nominations for Game of the Year to 8 instead of 6? Because those 6 slots are basically already taken, and it's almost impossible for something to get in there. So an 87 might not be enough for Ghost of Yotei. I even told people I didn't think Ghost of Yotei had a shot at winning Game of the Year. Now it looks like it might not even have a shot at getting the nomination. Now, it may get nominated for other categories, but what a competitive year. What a win for gamers. I think that's worth celebrating, even though Yotei will probably end up being my favorite game this year. Currently, my favorite game is Expedition 33. So this review comes from Radio Times. It is presently the lowest review, I think. Let me go ahead and let's see if they're at 97 now. Let's see if there's any scores lower than a 60. There are so many. It takes a while to scroll here, and you'll notice that we're still in the 90s, and now we're just now in the 80s. As I said, this is a really good visual representation of why. Oh, so Eurogamer, again, this is probably going to come down to 3 out of 5 stars. Yes, so 3 out of 5 stars. Again, in Chris's mind, that probably means to him that it's like fine. It's like okay. I don't think he envisions it being a failing grade, but this is a weakness of an aggregate tool like Metacritic. There's nothing wrong with somebody giving it a 3 out of 5 if that's what they thought. I just don't think the 60% necessarily represents their feelings, because when you see a 60%, you're like, yeah, that's kind of a failing grade, isn't it? So let's go down here at the bottom. I just want to kind of read the conclusion, and then maybe we'll go back through and we'll comb through and see maybe what this person took issue with. All in all, there are lots of good ingredients in Ghost of Yotei. The music is also great. I think the music could steal the show, but Expedition 33 soundtrack is going to be almost impossible to beat. But they did a lot of great things with sort of an East meets West musical style for Tsushima. I'm sorry, for Yotei. But with so much familiarity in the mix as well, it just doesn't gel together for me into something that I'd strongly recommend to anyone who's not a super fan of this subgenre. See, again, this is what I told people was going to be the issue. All it takes is for a couple of outlets to feel a little bit more tepid and lukewarm to the genre or the game, because there's that baked-in familiarity. There's things you felt like you've done before. I don't think that's avoidable. I think you're going to have that happen no matter what. AC Shadows is probably going to be included in some of these reviews for people that are like, yeah, it felt kind of similar. I got some people to thank. Hang on. Jerry A., thank you so much for renewing your member. That takes us to $4.53. And then a $5 super chat from Joker Quinn. I watched the first few minutes of the Digital Foundry review, and it blows AC Shadows out of the water. It's one of the, if not the best looking game that I've ever seen. That is exciting to hear. So yeah, the familiarity here is going to be something that comes up. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with somebody saying this. I actually think this is really informative to you, the viewer. If that's a concern that you have, maybe you should hold off. Let me play it, let others play it, and give you an opinion. If you're sort of worried that it's going to be too familiar or something that you feel like you've played before, this review, is going to highlight that. Now keep in mind, there's only like 6 or 7 reviews down in like the 70s and the 60s. Most of those are 70s. The 2 60s we've seen from Eurogamer and Radio Times are 3 out of 5 stars. So you gotta kind of interpret that not necessarily as a 60, but as like a middle of the road score. The rest of these are 80s, 85s, 95s, 100s. So keep that in mind. Like, it does seem like the minority is going to be people that are like, it was so-so. It seems like everybody else is kind of over the moon about Yōtei, but I like to give you guys the full breadth of what people think about a game in these review roundups. So if you're tuning in, this is a Ghost of Yotei review roundup. Okay, Spirits, thank you for 28 months and a VIP, adding to the total 454. Thank you so much. They go on to say that it has its moments, but I did get bored almost every time I picked it up, which is the last thing the developers will want to hear. I would say, in light of the review trends, they are, again, in the minority being bored here, but there were people in chat this morning that said they got bored in the third act of Tsushima, so this could be another slower burn that maybe that feels that way. Gene Park said it was a page-turner and that the story was excellent, so there are different views here. By all means, if you love Tsushima and AC Shadows and don't mind playing a sort of weird remix that blends the two into something new, give this a go, and you probably won't regret it. If you'd rather spend your spare time on something you haven't seen versions of before, you probably would regret pulling the trigger on this one. So again, they're coming back to the familiarity. I don't necessarily think that's a strong criticism. I would say that's a weaker criticism, mainly because you kind of knew going into this that's what you were getting. It would be like buying Saros March of next year and being like, yeah, it's a lot like Returnal and take points off. Yeah, you know that going in. That's an expectation that is set. You're buying an open world action-adventure game that's a sequel to Tsushima. That familiarity, I don't think, should be cause for taking points off. Points should be taken off for low quality, bad writing, gameplay that's not fun, clunky, or bad. I don't necessarily think you should take points off of familiarity. I made the similar criticism. Yes, it is a criticism of a criticism, which is meta, right? But I made a similar criticism when we covered Lies of P. And there were many people in their reviews that took points off and was like, yeah, Lies of P is too similar to FromSoft games. That's not a criticism. Criticism that should take points off from a game should be something that actually hinders, harms, or limits its quality. It shouldn't be something that just happens to be familiar. So I would say it's fair to make that criticism. I think it's informative to make that criticism, but I do think it's a weaker criticism. I don't think it's as strong. So thank you so much, Catwalk, for 31 months. We are exactly 20 members from 475. We'll see if anybody takes the bait, whether it's Twitch or YouTube, and steals the next milestone where I owe you guys a member. Okay, so Video Gamer, the Video Gamer outlet, I believe gave it a 70. So we're going to scroll down here and see, do they have pros and cons or a summary? No. Here's why they landed in a similar lane, it seems, as the review that we just read. Foregoing genre-advancing substance and texture for, it has to be said, impeccable style, Ghost of Yotei is freighted to dispense with calcified open-world conventions. I mean, that's a thesaurus that spilled on the table. Jiminy Christmas. Okay, so what they're trying to say here is that the open world conventions are calcified, like we've been here before. So they're making a similar criticism. It's familiar. Again, I don't think that's something that should surprise anybody or necessarily take points off, because that's kind of what I expect in a game like this. I don't expect them to reinvent the open world. I will say, based on what we already know, I think this is going to be a better open world game than others because of what they've done with the campfire as well as the spyglass. I want to read some of the more positive reviews and see what they think of the open world, because I do think those features will advance that experience. It remains to be seen if that's actually true. Given the review score, I would think that probably happened, so we'll see what others think. It lands as generic, risk-averse, rigid, and safe. By the time the credits roll, it feels like a game you've played dozens of times before, a derivative permutation of what's come before, albeit with a fresh lick of graphical varnish. Again, they're making the familiarity criticism. It's understandable publishers are less inclined to take risks with the rising costs of development and the tough competition and all-consuming free-to-play games. The obituary of devastating and costly failures is present. Concord, Anthem, and Suicide Squad cast a long shadow. So, again, I don't think this is a big deterrent if you were considering getting this game. We're not hearing flaws. We're not hearing sharp or severe criticism. We're hearing, well, it's got familiarity. Okay, I would expect that. It's a sequel, and it's an open-world game. It's an open-world action-adventure game. So now we're going to get into the more positive reviews. There's way more of them. So we're going to get into the more positive reviews, and we're going to see what people are saying about the open world specifically, because that is something that I have been interested in, and I want to see where that lands with people. I'm going to pause the thing that nobody likes on YouTube. It kind of interrupts us. So do me a favor and hit the like button if you haven't already. And thank you for the $2 super chat, Lazaro. So score GT7 low because it's another racing game. Like I said, I think it's a fair thing to say because I think it informs people who maybe don't want to play something familiar, okay? But I think it's a weak criticism. I think you can say both. I think you can be like, listen, it's fair for you to say that. Like, yeah, I got kind of bored. It felt kind of familiar. I think it's fair. I would just say it's on the weaker end of criticism. It's not like a bug or a glitch or bad gameplay. It's familiar. So, I'm not really sure what this guy's saying. Let's just kind of get like that. That's not appropriate to say. Okay, so here we go. Ghost of Yotei, another must-play PlayStation epic from Deserto. They gave it an 80. They gave it 4 out of 5. So specifically, what I want to see is, I want to see what they have to say about the open world. It doesn't seem like maybe they talked about it. So let's just see colorful characters. So they're going to talk about the story there. I don't want to get any spoilers, so let's see what they said about combat. One of the biggest complaints about Ghost of Tsushima was the limited variety of weapons, and while Jin's combat stamps its added depth, using his katana to carve through endless foes made the combat feel blunt, no matter how sharp the blade. To avoid this tedium, Sucker Punch has drastically upgraded its ancient arsenal. Here, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Hang on a second. There we go. That's better. Actually, let's try this scene. Let's see if we can make this a little bit more readable for you guys. That's better. By giving Sofa Samurai more weapons to master than ever before, and unleashing your inner Akira Kurosawa never felt before. Okay, that's real depth. There's real depth to fights as well, thanks to Yotei's rock, paper, scissors system, which encourages you to switch between all 5 melee weapons depending on what the enemy is using. We got to scroll through all of the extras here. In the heat of battle, this can be rather tricky, and in the early game, I was guilty of brute forcing my way through with my katana, but once it all clicked, fights became a meditative dance of flying limbs and blood-curdling screams. One moment, you're carving through spear-wielding foes with lightning-fast dual katana strikes. The next, you're breaking shields with a crushing Kusurigama blow, before finishing off a heavily armored brute with the two-handed Odachi. This is kind of what I was hoping would happen, that it would get back to like the song and the dance of Tsushima, where you're switching, and because you're switching, you feel like there's good skill expression, you feel like you're being challenged, but also you're adapting on the fly. So this sounds exactly like what I was kind of hoping for from the combat. The new throwing mechanic adds a scrappy, unpredictable flow to encounters, with Atsu able to hurl empty sake jars, spears, and dropped enemy swords for some lethal takedowns. The addition of the wolf companion also enhances the unpredictability. Atsu's furry friend will occasionally turn up during fights and even assist you in the cowboy-style standoffs, where it will comically pounce on enemies for bloody takedowns and even save you from a killing blow. Realistic? Not at all. Fun? Absolutely. So this sounds like exactly like what the guy sort of painted a picture in the rapid-fire interview, where it was like, yeah, the wolf's just going to kind of show up. You're not really going to have control over that. Enemies are not just meaty punching bags. I often found myself getting disarmed, both literally and figuratively, leaving me scrambling across the battlefield to recover my sword. Saito's goons won't just idly stand around taking turns to attack either. They'll aggressively pursue you, unleashing an onslaught of attacks that make for way more engaging scenarios that had me really thinking how to approach them. Yotei's combat is bloody, brutal, and better than ever. So that's high praise here. So this is about the story. I don't necessarily want to end up getting okay, this is not a spoiler. By comparison, Atsu's arc feels like a more straightforward version of that struggle. Her motivation is clear, but her on-screen actions rarely deliver the same satisfying payoff as Tsushima's story. What saves her tale from feeling hollow is Yotei's supporting cast, who bring the humor and nuance that Atsu herself sometimes lacks. So I do think this is probably important because this was something I was concerned about. Atsu's quest for revenge is gripping in its own right. It struggles to match the emotional weight of Jin's tale in Ghost of Tsushima. Jin's journey was fueled by an internal battle between loyalty, honor, and survival, giving his quest for revenge real depth. They're saying Atsu's arc feels more straightforward. That was a concern that I had after I made my deep dive into Tsushima, asking the question, what is honor? I was concerned that Ghost of Yotei was just going to be sort of a generic revenge tale and not something that had that level of depth. I was hoping, as the story progressed, that it would be more of a study on vengeance versus justice. It doesn't sound like that's what happens in it. It doesn't sound like there's an internal struggle. It's more straightforward, so that's unfortunate. Okay, here we might get into some of the open world. That's what I'm interested in. Like, how does the open world feel? While the mountainous region of Edzo is no bigger than Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei feels far more detailed and graphically ambitious. From the golden flowered fields and the grasslands to the frozen tundras of Teishio Ridge, every biome looks stunning. The sheer variety of flora, fauna, and vistas, and me constantly snapping photos like an overly excitable Edo period David Attenborough, it's that beautiful. While Ghost of Tsushima also was a looker when it released on PS4, Jin's island home felt empty. You had Mongol camps to liberate, bamboo strikes to slice, and fox shrines to uncover. It was like stepping into an expensive set where the A-list actors had gone home. To that end, Sucker Punch has drastically honed its environmental blade. The cute fox shrines and bare buttock onsens, Jin can't have all the fun, still make a return, but there are bounties you can accept at local inns, wolf camps that lead to deadly skirmishes, and ink painting locations where you can unleash your inner Hakusai. There are even coin-flicking mini-games that's just as addictive as The Witcher 3's Gwent. I lost just as many coins as I won, along with countless hours. NPCs also feel more alive than before, especially when venturing into towns or setting up camp, as they will tell you about nearby points of interest and giving you leads to the samurai on your hit list. Some of the best quests I discovered were from overhearing locals discussing problems and then venturing out into the wilderness sword in hand. Interestingly, Ghost of Yotei allows you to hunt down specific members of the Yōtei 6 in any order that you prefer, a development choice that adds further freedom. I was initially apprehensive about this, especially given how powerful some abilities can be. However, even after I explored Edzo, collecting upgrades and shiny new weapons, showdowns with these mini-bosses never felt easy and still delivered the pain that I failed when I failed to parry or dodge in time. So with such a strong emphasis on freedom and survival in the harsh lands of Edzo, it's disappointing that the new cooking system feels half-baked. You can grill fish and mushrooms over an open fire, but you can't actually hunt game with your bow or rifle. There are fishing rods dotted around nearby lakes, yet they're strangely off limits. Sure, Atsu can use her spear to catch fish, but the limited resources and lack of meaningful ways to gather them make this new feature feel hollow. Verdict, okay. So they didn't really get into the open world exploration and, some of the new features of the open world exploration, so I'm hoping that somebody touches on that. We're going to continue reading. I've got one from Game Informer, Screen Rant, Game Rant, all high praising the game, all high scores from those outlets. So the game is scoring very well. While Ghost of Yotei's tale of revenge may not cut as deep as its predecessor, Sucker Punch's blade is still deadly. The environments of Edzo are begging to be explored, and the melee combat has never been sharper, delivering more weapons, blood, and adrenaline-fueled duels worthy of the Kurosawa films that inspired it. Whether you're a fan of Ghost of Tsushima or a newcomer to the series, Ghost of Yotei is a must-play. Atsu's adventure sets a new gold standard for a samurai action games and marks an exciting new chapter in the Ghost Saga, one that will hopefully shape the series for years to come. Okay, so that's obviously a great score, but I'm interested in the open world. So we've got Game Informer here, and they gave it a 9.3, I believe, or like a 9.25, so they gave it a very, very strong score. I'm looking for info on how the map feels. Okay, do they talk about the story? Yeah, I am interested, too, if other people felt more strongly about the story. The pacing. Despite being absorbed in the narrative, I was constantly distracted by side missions. Let me give you guys a little bit larger text size here. If you want to roleplay, Zatsu vendors. Ghost of Yotei does not radically reinvent or change what worked in Tsushima, but that's fine because, frankly, Sucker Punch nailed the mechanics the first time. Where I argue it does improve in big ways is in its narrative and characters. Okay, so Game Informer thinks that it improved on the narrative and the characters over Tsushima, which is really interesting because I think Tsushima is so excellently done in this particular department. So that's good to hear that somebody sees it differently. Atsu is a brash, justifiably angry woman who probably drinks too much, which is my fault, I admit, because drinking sake restores spirit. She knows exactly what she wants and is more than willing to fight for it. She was compelling to me from the moment we made our list together, and I love spending time with her, watching her grow, and enjoying the journey of everyone she met along the way. And it's all done with basically no loading screens. I want a little bit more of a breakdown here. I've not read anything from Kyle before. This feels very, very quick. This is unusual for Game Informer. My experience in reading Game Informer reviews is that they're a lot more substantive and do a lot more. This one feels very, very short. This feels very 30,000 feet, which is fine. If that's how you want to write your review, that's fine. But I'm accustomed to Game Informer having a little bit more thought in their reviews. That's why I like to go to Game Informer. Traditionally, they've always been one of my favorite outlets for reviews. This feels very, very flyover and not very deep. Thank you so much for 30 members, Cloud Strife. Digital Foundry said the same thing. The story is a lot more put together and not all over the place, and I love Tsushima, so I'm excited. Well, if Digital Foundry had praise for the story, that's exciting because they're the tech guys. So if they're saying that the story kind of surprised them or they liked it, that is exciting. Okay, so this one is from Screen Rant. They gave it a very strong score, I believe like a 95. Okay, here we go. We might get some info about the map here. It works best when you're genuinely wandering, all right? Yōtei's most consequential iteration of Tsushima's open world gameplay comes courtesy of Atsu's spyglass. Here we go. This is what I want to hear about. Having a telescope sounds like a minor addition, but it becomes a necessary tool in how Ghost of Yotei provides a workaround to the issue that plagues open-world adventures of its ilk, constantly opening the map to select the next icon. Scanning your surroundings with the spyglass will let you discover points of interest, and you can even set the guiding wind, Tsushima's greatest triumph, while targeting a location. With so many vantage points in Itzo, it's easy to go hours without opening the map, and engaging strictly with what you can see for as long as possible seems to be the intended experience. There's a deliberate cadence to the game that gets undermined when you select a destination on the map and go there in a straight line. You have to make an effort to play the part, but I found Yōtei more enjoyable when, entering a new region, I made the local inn my first destination, sticking to well-worn paths until I was waylaid by a newfound objective. Now, I'm just going to make a prediction or a theory here. I wonder if the people that felt fatigued by open world or familiar to open world, I wonder if they played it like every other open world game. You know, you're just opening the map, selecting a thing, going to the thing, doing the thing. They iterated on the open world in a way where if that's how you're playing, I think you're probably robbing yourself of a better experience. Now, that's obviously subjective. You may not enjoy doing the open world exploration spyglass thing. That might annoy you. Play however you want, but I do think my recommendation would be to take what this person is saying and apply it. Play the game in a more free, wandering way, and you might actually enjoy it more, and you won't feel that open world, fatigue that you feel in so many other open world games. It was very smart on Sucker Punch's part to give Ghost of Yotei's narrative little urgency. Atsu is returning to Itzo after many years away with one objective: exact revenge on the Yōtei 6. She doesn't know where they are, so by extension, you don't know where to go. There's only one thing you can do, and that's wander. Buoyed by the myriad rumors you pick up from Itzo's denizens, you'll quickly have plenty of leads to follow when you eventually do have to consult your map. Scores 87, pretty much where I told folks it would land. I mean, I hit a bullseye, boys. I said 87 yesterday. Look at that. 102 reviews. I think OpenCritic's always a teeny bit higher because it's always a little bit behind in the total. Only 63 have come in on OpenCritic. Metacritic's got 102. So this score will likely not change. That's probably locked in at 87. And that's a very, very good score. That is higher than the first game. Might not be high enough to get a Game of the Year nomination, which is just a testament to how strong the year is. Okay, let's go. But the rumor system does eventually start showing its cracks. It's an issue I noticed in Atomfall, which similarly tries to make quest gathering an organic part of exploration. There's a finite amount of content in Ghost of Yotei, but multiple leads pointing to each objective, so you start to feel like you're gathering redundant information, or like you've acquired some bits out of order, and everything in Izo consequently feels like an open secret. These larger structural issues barely register, though, when Ghost of Yotei's moment-to-moment gameplay is so delightful. The sharply honed excellence of Ghost of Tsushima's combat returns in a more robust form. Atsu has more than just a katana at her disposal, so the disparate stances used by Jin Sakai in Tsushima are replaced by wholly different melee weapons, each with their own movesets and special attacks in Yotei. Here's the thing. A new PS5 Pro version is releasing. It's been claimed that a new PS5 Pro variant is being released in Europe, but the improvements within are unknown. Isn't this going to be the one with the smaller hard drive, or is that something else? The fake positive vibe in chat is off the charts. I'm not sure what you're talking about. It sounds like people are probably just excited. You don't have to be. That's okay. The quip-swapping battlefield management of larger skirmishes and the exacting back and forth of the more intimate duels are equally satisfying. With numerous melee weapons, ranged options, and quick-fire utilities, there's a great sense of mastery as the game progresses, and you not only gain more abilities, but you learn to use them in sync. In all of its facets, from exploration to progression, Ghost of Yotei strives to keep you engaged in the wandering samurai fantasy, and it succeeds without question, provided you play the game on its terms. I really wish they would stop calling her a samurai, though. I feel like Sucker Punch was very intentional in saying, like, that she's not a samurai. She's a wandering warrior, but, I mean, I don't want to be persnickety about this, but I kind of feel like we should be, because she's not a samurai. She's not been trained in the way of the samurai. She's not wearing samurai armor. I know that the word samurai can be used generically, but I do think people should be like, she's a warrior. She's a wandering warrior. She's a vengeful spirit, right? It's kind of an important detail. I actually think it's important. It's an important detail. It was baked into the story of Tsushima that, like, Jin rejected the way of the samurai, raised and trained as a samurai. You get your father's armor. It's a significant point. She's not a samurai. So I just, again, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to, like, take this guy, whoever wrote this, to task, but I do think it's important. You know, maybe by samurai they mean Japanese person. Stop it. I found Ghost of Tsushima's honor versus necessity themes to be compelling, but Jin Sakai is arguably one of the most milquetoast characters in his own game. Now listen, I'm not going to make this personal, but this person needs to shut the frick up about Jin. I'm just kidding. Ghost of Yotei rectifies this shortcoming with Atsu, whose complicated, often brusque personality is more interesting to peel back as her hunt for the Yotei 6 unfolds. Atsu gets room to breathe as the protagonist, thanks to the aforementioned lack of urgency, but Yotei's story isn't entirely devoid of faults. In some ways, Atsu's arc is opposite of Jin's. Atsu's a ruthless killer, and the myth of the Onryo spreads quickly, but even early on, she begins to recognize that something deep within her is wrong. Jin becomes the ghost, while Atsu wonders if there's anything left that's not the ghost. Okay, this is encouraging. I hope I can do a deep dive into this game's story like I did with Tsushima. If she is looking deep within to be like, wait, is there something wrong with me? That's the kind of self-reflection that I want in a game like this. I think there were moments of this in Last of Us Part 2 where, like, Ellie's really kind of questioning what she's doing. Her bruised body in that one scene, I think, is meant to be a visual representation of, like, what she's doing to her soul. And I think this will make the story so much better. You know, like, don't just go on this journey of killing. Reflect on what it's doing to you. It's not just about what you're doing to the people that you're killing. Ghost of Yotei is as much a Western as it is a samurai film. You're always the capable stranger who wanders into town like the man with no name. And Atsu has a way with horses that evokes John Grady Cole from Cormac McCarthy's The Border Trilogy. The game even does a bit where you walk into an establishment filled with seedy individuals and everyone goes quiet as they turn to look at the newcomer. While the near-endless errands and regular bloody fights remain constantly entertaining, Ghost of Yotei's acute focus on wandering does unfortunately make its narrative feel disjointed and oddly paced. I had completely forgotten that the game opened with a Chapter 1 title card. When 50 hours in, I was blindsided by one that read Chapter 2. This first chapter, when Atsu is at her most bloodthirsty, is inversely the most meditative, setting you free to explore the large majority of Izo according to your whims. That is absolutely wonderful that they were 50 hours in when they got to Chapter 2. Is there a new launch trailer? We'll check it out in a second. The second chapter then follows with a constrained scope, and then the third is the veritable beeline to the end credits. Okay, focus grows more acute. Atsu's tale is the perfect companion to Jin. Jin grapples with personal and moral quandaries. Atsu is forced into that way of life, eventually coming to wonder if there's anything else to life after she's been consumed by violence. Okay, so they're not putting spoilers. They're giving us generic themes, and that's okay. I didn't want to read any spoilers. Yōtei is bold and surprisingly unpredictable. The engine that moves Yōtei most effectively is perceived serendipity. Rumors and their adjoining quests are categorized by type, but none of the formulaic. They're not formulaic in how they reach Atsu. You overhear a conversation, you're approached by a stranger, you're confronted at a bamboo strike, you come across a blood-splattered camp, you interrogate a lone survivor, or you make camp and you have a chat with a visitor. Yōtei is about the best you can hope for from this style of task-filled open-world game, which is often a pejorative referred to as Ubisoft style. I think this is good to point out. I think this is really, really sort of striking at the heart of the ones that are saying, well, it's too familiar, right? It's too familiar. Where they're saying, well, actually, this is the best you could hope for in this. And I really am going to keep coming back to, if you're not using the sort of new methods of open world exploration, it doesn't surprise me that people are sort of having a bad time. They're like, yeah, it's kind of predictable as an open world game. So I would hazard a guess that the people that are going to engage with those new open world exploratory systems are probably going to have a better time in the open world, unless, of course, you don't like them. That is obviously subjective, but again, that's just going to be my recommendation. They didn't spend all that time innovating on open world exploration for you to ignore it and just keep pulling open the map. It wouldn't surprise me if people are doing that and being like, yeah, it's just another open world game. It tries very hard to keep you engaged with what is directly in front of and around you at any given moment, and the variety with which it introduces the new threads to pull keep the experience from growing stale. My only wish is for a way to access the rumor cards, essentially the quest log, without opening the map. Let me scroll down here to the bottom and read. Okay, here they go. I'm sorry, here's their pros and cons. Open world exploration is emergent and intuitive. Atsu is a more compelling protagonist than her predecessor, improves Ghost of Tsushima's combat with more variety, Izo's gorgeously rendered and easy to become immersed in. Cons. Latter sections of the story have odd pacing, doesn't entirely escape the pitfalls of similar open world adventures. Okay. Okay. If you guys have been waiting, Tom Warren's reporting that if you've been waiting on the Xbox Ally pricing, it is dropping today, according to Asus. All right, let's watch this launch trailer. Have you guys seen that the Wolverine trailer has already 4 million views? Jiminy Christmas. Okay, let's watch the launch trailer. Better than Jin. A couple of the reviews seem to think that Jin was kind of bland. He was a little flat, but the point is that he's supposed to be. Like, he has emotion sort of trained out of him.
I will find every last member of the Yōtei Six, and I will bring you peace. I swear it.
Creatures such as you and I cannot resist the call of revenge.
found something new to live for.
Ooh-wee, it looks good. I am very excited. It looks so good, man. The score, the original score, the soundtrack sounds so good. If you guys are looking for a Ghost of Yotei review, we are doing a Ghost of Yotei review roundup. We're now in the more positive reviews. We've already read some of the more lower scores. There are very few of them. There's only about 6 or 7 gaming outlets that gave it like a 7 or a 6 out of 10. The 6 out of 10s, again, are a little wonky because they're 3 out of 5 stars. They're not necessarily giving it a 60%. The 5-star system sometimes doesn't compute into a 10 or a 100 point scale very well. The reason I think it's okay for Jin to be more flat as a character is that's part of his story. His uncle literally says, I can train you with the blade, but I need you to train you to control your emotions. His flatline emotional sort of stoic outlook is why he's such a good pragmatic warrior. He's like, I did what needed to be done. He doesn't let emotion cloud him. That's part of his journey. So if your interpretation of him was that, well, he was bland, and yeah, I didn't really like that. It's like, that's quite literally one of his attributes. That's what makes him the ghost. Like, if you paid attention to the story, go watch my deep dive into it. It's 33 minutes long. People seem to be really liking it. And if you want to see my breakdown of the story, that is to literally, yes, never strike in anger, control your emotions. That's one of the tenets of their code. So, that literally is what equips him to become the Ghost of Tsushima. So I'm not concerned at all that people are saying that and like contrasting her to Jin. I think Jin's story will stand the test of time. I think his character will stand the test of time. Yeah, he's not supposed to be out here being mouthy and belligerent like Nathan Drake. Sephiroth with 5 months bumps the line over there on purple. Thank you so much. We're at 456 on the week. Thank you, boys. I'd rather play Super Mario Galaxy than Ghost of Yotei, but the graphics look really good and the reviews are mostly positive. Yeah, I mean, if you're more in the mood or your preference is take it to Galaxy, I mean, I think Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are 2 of the best Mario games ever made. I don't know why you'd necessarily be comparing it to Ghost of Yotei, but I mean, I loved Galaxy 1 and 2. I'm kind of excited for them to come back to Switch. I think a 3 out of 5 kind of translates into a 7 out of 10 when you convert it. Yeah, I mean, the math of taking a 3 out of 5 to a 60% is not, I don't think, representative of the reviews. Like, when we read the review, it wasn't scathing. They weren't saying it was a failure, but a 60% looks like a failure. So that's always going to be a weakness of the aggregate system on Metacritic. Metacritic doesn't necessarily ask them to interpret their 3 out of 5 into a 10 point or 100 point. So that's just the nature of it. Okay, so Game Rant says, Ghost of Yotei review. A vengeful samurai epic that surpasses its predecessor. So if you guys are enjoying the show, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up. It does help us out. It's a massive hit, they called Tsushima. Sold over 13 million copies. Yotei is set hundreds of years after, abandoning the narrative. Okay, so we know that. Bloodthirsty revenge, we know that. The heart-pumping opening battle sets the tone for the rest of Yotei. Atsu is an interesting, layered character with a range of emotions and is well acted. Atsu's journey is equal parts exciting and heartbreaking, with the present-day action complemented by shocking flashbacks that slowly give players the full picture of exactly what happened on the night of the attack. For the most part, its story is an action-packed blockbuster with shocking twists and turns, big-time emotional payoffs, and an endearing cast of supporting characters. The only downside is that there are occasional lulls in the story. Kind of need lulls, don't you? I don't know. Ghost of Yotei doesn't take a totally linear approach to the storytelling. Yes, we know you can get this Yotei 6 anytime that you want. It doesn't help that the story of one of the Yotei 6 hunts isn't as interesting as the others. The storyline tied to the Yotei 6 member Ani was exhilarating and full of great moments, but I wasn't nearly as entertained by the Kitsune story. Part of that was likely due to the pacing whiplash, but it's also home to unearned narrative choices that didn't feel true to Atsu's character. You also can do things out of order, which is an interesting choice. Like, instead of having sort of like a crescendo where maybe one story is a little bit more, slow going and a little bit more calm, and then you have like one that's maybe more explosive. You can't really have that building up to the explosive one if you are doing them in any order that you want. So that's a risk that they took, I think, by allowing you to do things in any order. It's mostly great. While exploring the open world, I happen to come across an optional enemy camp. Players can take a stealthy approach. Regardless, taking the camp triggered a scene with Saito where the big bad commented on Atsu's efforts and the impact they were having. As more members of the Yōtei 6 are knocked off the board, Saito's men become more dangerous and take Atsu more seriously, which means traps and more heavily armed enemies in the open world. This helps make almost everything feel tied to the fight against the Yōtei 6 and makes the side content more compelling than it would be otherwise. Its content is in general head and shoulders above Tsushima, with all kinds of intriguing side quests and epic battles to seek them out. The repetitive checklist-style open-world structure is still a factor in Yōtei, but there's more variety to the tasks. Yes, Atsu will need to visit a bunch of shrines to unlock new techniques and abilities, but the path to each one is unique. One might require climbing and platforming up a mountain, while another will involve light puzzle solving or stealthy clearing out a group of enemies. Since Yōtei's upgrades are tied to things like shrines, seeking out and engaging in the side content is definitely worthwhile. Doing so gives Atsu more options in combat, in turn making fights more fun. While upgrades aren't necessary to complete the game, they give Atsu a significant advantage, like the one that allows for chain assassinations, or another that unlocks a special charge attack that can one-shot certain enemies if timed correctly. If you guys have not hit the like button yet, do me a favor, quickly do it. We are crushing it today. Holy cow. Thank you guys so much for a strong turnout. We need 20 more. Ghost of Yotei combat is perfect, Game Rant says. Combat in Ghost of Yotei is perfect. Atsu takes a lot of damage with each hit, so it's important that players perfect the game's dodging and parrying, especially in boss fights and when fighting multiple enemies at once. Different weapons are effective against each other and certain enemy types, which encourages players to use more than their katana and ensures that each combat encounter has plenty of variety. Atsu has other tools to help her in fights as well, like smoke bombs that allow for a quick escape, and bows, which are good for taking enemies out from afar, or getting quick close-range kills if players are fast enough. Ghost of Yotei boss fights, meanwhile, provide a great deal of challenge without ever becoming frustrating. Even Discussing Film did a review. Discussing Film said, I love my time with Yōtei. Sucker Punch managed to craft an unforgettable tale of vengeance and build upon the open world and combat mechanics of Tsushima in a meaningful way. It's a game that should not be missed. Ghost of Yotei combat is cinematic, intense, and satisfying. Stealth is also fun, with certain sections of the game encouraging it without outright forcing it on the player. Wiping out enemy encampments without getting spotted is a thrill, but if enemies do happen to find Atsu, the ensuing sword fights are just as exciting. On the whole, Ghost of Yotei combat plays like a smoother, more impressively animated take on Tsushima's visceral combat. So this is high praise for Ghost of Yotei gameplay. This is high praise that we are, I'm going to be extremely critical if any of these things are missteps, because the combat is so pristine in Tsushima. So I'm very encouraged to read a review like this. So that was only one area where things could have maybe gone awry. Let's refresh and see how many reviews. Still just 102. That's a lot. 87's probably a locked-in score. 63 on OpenCritic, now 65. Still holding on to a high score over there on OpenCritic, but that's because a lot of the reviews are not being tabulated just yet. Combat is the core of the Ghost of Yotei experience, but it shakes things up with occasional platforming and mini-games that utilize the PS5 DualSense controller's touchpad. Motion controls are used for cooking sections and blacksmithing, but all the gimmicky DualSense features can be ignored if that's not your thing. When it comes to gameplay, I have no complaints about Ghost of Yotei. It's the perfect realization of the open-world samurai concept established by the first game, with Yotei exceeding its predecessor in other areas as well, like the graphics. Ghost of Yotei players will be blown away by the sheer majesty of the game's graphics. Ghost of Yotei's open world is a sight to behold, with incredible weather effects and an astonishing level of detail. For example, it happened to be raining while I was talking to an NPC, and I saw a single raindrop land on their head and roll down their face. Ghost of Yotei is potentially the best looking PS5 game yet, and what Sucker Punch accomplished here is nothing short of spectacular. Now, listen, people were saying that in the lead up to this. They said, I can't wait to play a game that's just purely built for PS5. We saw excellent things done with Spider-Man 2 in this regard. We're also hearing from Digital Foundry that this game pleasantly comes with a 60 FPS mode where you can turn on the ray tracing global illumination. And you guys know I was preaching that gospel about Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I said AC Shadows is one of the best looking games this gen, and that was why. Turning on the global illumination and maintaining that 60 FPS was an enormous uptick in the game's quality, in the game's, like, it's just a huge visual lift for the game. So I'm going to continue to say that is why people should be paying attention to the future hardware that gives you the ability to do those things. Because when you see it and when you experience it, it's kind of like when you first experience 60 FPS, okay? Like, when you first experience 60 FPS, you never really want to go back from that, right? And I think once you start experiencing games with GI turned on, global illumination, right? Once GI is turned on and you're getting 60 FPS, I think it's transformative. I think you will be blown away. And so I'm very, very excited to play this game for that reason. I know we're talking Ghost of Yotei, but are you covering any of the games from Capcom Tokyo Game Show, for example, Pragmata? We watched the trailer for that yesterday. My thoughts were the combat looks creative, fresh, and new, like something I've never played before, but the voice actor for the girl is grating, and hopefully she doesn't talk too much, or hopefully you can turn her down, or I don't know. It was a bit much. That was my take on Pragmata. It looks very cool, and the performance consistently looks better now. Originally, some of the early footage of the game, the performance looked a little wonky, so it is looking better. Ghost of Yotei players will be blown away by the sheer majesty of the game's graphics. Yotei's open world is a sight to behold with incredible weather effect. Wait, hang on. I already read this. Sorry. Ghost of Yotei Ghost of Tsushima walks so Ghost of Yotei could run. Yotei beat Tsushima in every category with better graphics, better music, better gameplay, and a better story, despite the occasional narrative lull. The fact that people are saying it's a better story really has perked my interest, because Tsushima's story is a masterpiece. I have a friend who has like a PhD in like literary criticism, and he watched my video breakdown of Tsushima, and he said that he was very impressed. He was like, did one person write the story? I said, no, usually it's a team. He was very impressed by not just the video, but he was impressed by the story in Tsushima. And so for somebody that has like literary criticism to be impressed by like the themes and the story and the writing of Tsushima, that says a lot, okay? He's not just some gamer bro, you know. He's never played the game, and he thought the story and the themes and the way that they wrote it and everything, that's high praise. So the fact that people are saying that the story in Yotei is better than Tsushima is pretty significant. Ghost of Yotei is the kind of game that you can't stop playing. And when you're not playing it, you'll be thinking about when you can play it again. It's a masterful open world game, and one of the exclusives on the PS5. They gave it a 10 out of 10. Intense, exciting combat, engrossing revenge story with a great cast of characters, worthwhile and rewarding side content, some of the best graphics on the PS5. The story has some lulls and repetition is a con. I think this is almost unavoidable with a game this size, right? That's going to be almost unavoidable. So, thank you guys so much for hitting the like button, getting us to 200 likes. We're right on the doorstep. Check your renewals, check your primes, check your gifteds. We've got 10 members on the day between the two platforms. We're at 456. So now the question becomes, does the Ghost of Yotei review scored, where it stands, is it strong enough for Game of the Year nomination? I think it's going to be very difficult. I do. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. There are 6 slots for Game of the Year. There are 3 to 4 that I think are guaranteed. Your 3 guarantees are like Expedition 33, Silksong, Hades 2. I would say Death Stranding 2 is also in there. You have 4 slots that are just already taken. Hades 2, Silk Song, Expedition 33, and Death Stranding 2. I feel like 4 slots are just automatically gone. Out of the 6. That leaves 2. You've got Kingdom Come Deliverance out there on the field. You've got Split Fiction out there on the field. Yeah, Split Fiction could be a guarantee as well, given how It Takes Two, what did so well. I'm telling you, it's going to be it's going to be really, really, really hard to get a Game of the Year nomination. I don't even know if Donkey Kong gets one. Based on score alone, Donkey Kong's up there, but I just don't know if the memory of Donkey Kong's going to be as potent as some of these other games. How can you leave out Kirby Air Riders? That's right, don't forget Kirby Air Riders. It'll probably win Art Direction. You think it'll win Art Direction over Silk Song and Expedition 33 and Death Stranding 2? I don't know. I'm here to tell you this year is insane. It's absolutely insane that a Sucker Punch game with an 87 might not even get a nomination. The original Tsushima had an 83. The director's cut ended up getting an 86. So it's very impressive. But you like Yotei's art direction a lot more than Expedition? I'm just here to tell you, Sucker Punch made a sequel that outscored its predecessor, and it still might not be enough to get a Game of the Year nomination. That's how insane 2025 has been. Silk Song, Hades 2, Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Death Stranding 2. Boys, your baby steps. Baby steps. I feel like these games just get lost in the AC comparisons with many reviewers praising it or rewarding it for avoiding most of the tropes and issues they complain about in AC games they give. I don't know, Omar. I feel like there's way more 9s, 10s, and 8s than there are 7s and 6s. There's only a couple. There's 7 scores down there at the bottom out of how many scores? 102. And there's 7 or 8? Everybody else is it's better, the open world's better, the combat's better, Gaming isn't dying, my wallet is hurting though. Yeah, gaming's not dying, our budgets are dying or hurting, yeah, for sure. If you guys are looking for a Ghost of Yotei review roundup, we've been combing through the reviews. 87 on Metacritic. Let's go. Let's refresh this. Yep, still 102 and an 87. Open Critic is a little slow sometimes to get all the reviews tabulated, so they're still sitting at 66. So the Ghost of Yotei review score on Metacritic, solid 87. It's odd for the home screen music doesn't loop. It just ends after about a minute. Oh, really? That is weird. I mean, that's not a huge deal, but that is weird that that's happening. I felt like they usually loop it, but Wukong got a nom at 79. I think Wukong aged with time at the outlets because the outlets themselves felt more strongly about it than the single review of each outlet. Do you know what I mean? One person writes the review for IGN, but there were other people at IGN that were probably campaigning and saying, listen, Wukong's great. It needs to be up there. So Sven is thinking that the six nominations for Game of the Year are Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Split Fiction, Silk Song, Ghost of Yotei, and Hades 2. Maybe Metroid Prime. I mean, not seeing Donkey Kong get a nom, not seeing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 get a nom, I don't know. I'm here to tell you that there's probably 10 games that at some level deserve a nom. I'm still salty that Tsushima lost Game of the Year. I was salty until I played Last of Us Part 2, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's why it won. And I like Tsushima more. But I was like, oh no, I get it now. From a technical aspect, yeah. I don't want to have that debate again, but yeah, I changed my mind. I did. And I love Tsushima so much more. I gotta say, I was awake for the Xbox showcase at Tokyo Game Show, and I felt like I wasted my time. Oh, yeah, I don't care to compare the two. The state of play was fine. It looked like Xbox had a fine showing as well. I mean, I don't... The thing for the Xbox boys, I think, to celebrate is that Forza 6 is going to be an exclusive, at least for a time, PC, Xbox, and Game Pass, and it won't be on PlayStation at launch. It's going to come later, so they can, that they can celebrate that. Rise of the Ronin should have got a nom. I put a lot of time into Rise of the Ronin. I don't agree with that at all. It was really rough around the edges. That you're not supposed to. You shouldn't be getting a Game of the Year nomination when your game's not polished. I don't think. Really, that's a win. I mean, it's one of the biggest and most popular racing franchises in existence, and they're going to get it first, and also on Game Pass. They don't like exclusives? Listen, man, y'all aren't going to bait me into that, man. I'm giving them a flower and saying, hey, that's a win for you guys. Enjoy it. It's a huge title. People love it. It's graphically impressive. I'm not getting into all that. If they celebrate that it's an exclusive, feel free to ask them why suddenly exclusives are good. I'm just not getting into that, boys. I don't care about that. I don't want to have that discussion anymore. I'm so tired of it. Tsushima had an 83 when it got a nom. It's a different year. It was a different year, though. Is that if that's what you're saying? The competition this year is insane. It's absolutely insane. You know what I mean? People have to stop sleeping on Lies of P Overture and Lies of P overall. I mean, it has an amazing score. Users really loved it. Silksong not getting a nom. Oh no, Silksong's definitely getting a nom. Who said it wasn't? I definitely think it's getting a Game of the Year nomination. I think your guaranteed spots are Expedition 33, Silksong, Hades 2, Split Fiction. I feel like those are all guaranteed nominations. There's other surprises that could come out of nowhere. I mean, Blueprints is in there. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is in there. I mean, Yōtei is in the running. I think they're at the back of the pack, though. I don't think Yōtei's in a strong position. I think it's in a great position, but not a strong position. There are just other games higher than it. And when it comes time for the voting, Kingdom Come Deliverance did very, very well. Hades 2 is exploding right now. Death Stranding 2 did very, very well. I'm telling you, it is an insane year. Absolutely insane. Death Stranding 2 is probably a guaranteed nom as well. I am curious. I am curious if Keeley's going to open up and say, we're going to do 8 nominations this year. There's too many games. Doing just 6 doesn't feel right. I don't know if he's going to do that or not. I don't know. No, I agree, Deuterino. I've said for a while that if Yōtei lands where I think it's going to land, it might not get a nomination. It's just too competitive. The year is way, way too competitive. When you've got games in the low 90s and you get an 87, you're probably going to slip off the podium. It's just the way that it goes. It's a tight race. Nomination's not based on Metacritic, though. I don't think anybody's saying it's based off of Metacritic. Metacritic's a barometer, a general barometer of what the jury's going to do. It's a general barometer. It's not law. It's not written in stone. But generally speaking, if you go to Metacritic and you go to OpenCritic, that is going to be a pretty good indicator of what gets nominated, because a lot of the jury, that's where they're coming from. They're coming from the people that, did the reviews that are sitting on Metacritic. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Death Stranding 2, Expedition 33, Silksong, Hades 2, Split Fiction, Shinobi Art of Vengeance, Ghost of Yotei, First Berserker Kazan, Lies of P DLC. And you probably left things out that other people have enjoyed. Like, it's just absolutely stacked. Just a stacked year. No, I agree with you, Prisoner. I think Expedition 33 is going to win most of the categories. It will win for soundtrack. It will win for Game of the Year. It will likely win for art direction. It will likely win for performance, like an actor. One of the cast members is going to win. If it walks away with less than 4 awards, I'll be surprised. I think it's going to get 4 or 5 awards. Easy. I mean, easily. Expedition 33 is going to easily get 4 or 5 of the categories that it lands in. And a single gifted comes in from Mike onto Mike and bumps the line to 457. A slower start on members today, but it could turn around. Friday night, you guys can always make my wife play a game. It's something fun that we do. Let's make her play Baby Steps, man. We're very close. We hit 500 and she has to play it. And then we've opened up Saturdays as a potential. We did a community game night last Saturday, and we had a good time. We did some Jackbox. Shinobi would have to go up against Ninja Gaiden Ragebound then. I feel like didn't Shinobi do better as a... I feel like people like Shinobi. I mean, it's subjective, but I feel like people like Shinobi more. I don't know. Wire Rope gifts a 5-bomb over here on purple. Boom. And it's tied 8-8 between the two platforms. Thank you so much for dropping the 5-bomb on the chat. There he is, Jin Sakai. Agreed, but a few bad apples pulling the score down. I don't think that ruins a game's chances. Yeah, I mean, I think the point that you're making is actually a fair point, JC, that, like, mathematically, if you take away, just take away the 6 to 8 lower scores, Yotei's got a ton of people that might vote for it. So it might get a nom. I think that's a fair made point. If you only have, 6 or 8, and some of those outlets might not even be in the jury process. They might not even be a voter. So, if you take those 6 or 8 away and you only have the remaining, 99 reviews, that's a lot of outlets that might vote for Yotei in the Game of the Year grouping. You figured 90 at least? Well, this is what I kept saying, and I'm going to give you a visual representation. And a single gifted comes in from James MC over here on YouTube. Thank you. I'm going to give you a visual representation of something that I kept saying, okay? So something that I kept saying is, it doesn't take that many scores to drop a score out of the 90s, okay? And I'm going to give you a visual representation of this, okay? So what we're looking at here is the Metacritic of Ghost of Yotei, okay? Now look, 93 are in the green and 9 of them are yellow. This is all it took. 9. You have 107 critic reviews. And that's all it took. 1 in every 10 people that played the game were like, meh. 9 out of 10 people were like, this game's great. This game's good. It doesn't take much. Now, this is basic math. There's nothing wrong with these 9 people giving it a lower score. There's nothing wrong with that. They're not a problem. They're allowed to do that. But when I told people that Ghost of Yotei was going to struggle to hold on to a 90, that was what I kept saying. If you guys remember, I kept saying it only takes a handful of outlets to be more tepid and lukewarm to the game to pull its score down. I think this genre is always going to struggle with that. Look at the visual representation here. I'm just going to scroll, and I'm going to scroll, and I'm going to scroll, and 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 scroll. I'm speeding up. Scroll. Look at all this. We're still right now. We're still in the 90s. Let me just drag the bar over. You see the... I don't know what happened. Let me just scroll down to right here. You see over here where my mouse is circling? That's how far we've scrolled down, and we're still in the 90s. You see? It just doesn't take much to drop a score out of the 90s. So many people have heaped praise on this game, and you scroll all the way down here, and this little group here is all it takes. Yellow, 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 yellow. Here's your 9 yellows. That's all it takes. The entire, look, 80. The entire rest of the scores are 80 and up. You see? So when people are like, oh, no, dude, Yotei's going to get like a 90 or 91, I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. Mathematically, it's extremely easy to have your score drop. 60's out of control. It's actually a 3 out of 5. Metacritic doesn't have a great tool or aggregate for outlets that do the 5-star rating. Because a 3 out of 5, I don't think the person that gives it a 3 out of 5, like if you go and read the ones that are giving it 3 stars, it doesn't read like a failing grade 60%. It reads like a game that they were just more lukewarm to. Middle of the road, 3 out of 5 stars. They're fair reviews. I don't think there's anything wrong with the reviews. It's that the 3 out of 5 doesn't translate into the 100-point system very well. Game reviews are so biased and subjective at times. All game reviews are biased and subjective. All of them. They're written by human beings. 60's the usual suspects? I don't think so. Eurogamer's not known for just being negative. I don't know who this is. Game Cult? Gamer.no? Metro Games Central? Video Gamer? Power Unlimited? Games.cz? IGN Italia? All of the IGNs I saw were in like the 90s. And then Radio Times? Who's that? And then Eurogamer. What do you mean? What are you talking about? If I give something a 3 out of 5, that's pretty bad for me, but not everyone is the same for 3 out of 5. So we really can't consider Yōtei a 90? Huh? That's really good. No. I don't think we're saying that you can consider it a 90. If that's how somebody's going to interpret what I said, that's very, very misrepresentative of what I said and what JC was saying. What JC was saying is the math's in their favor. If you take away the 9 scores that are yellow, there's a ton of people left over that might vote for it and give it a Game of the Year nomination. Does that make sense? What he's saying is, even if those 9 people don't vote for Yōtei, there's a ton of people left over that might still vote for it, because look how many scores we had to scroll through that were all 90s. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, he's arguing the math of it. A lot of what I say about the Game Awards and nominations really gets lost in the sauce of just people who are hateful on the internet who misrepresent what I say. I'm always arguing the math of it. Math is black and white. It's got hard, rigid lines. And when you have that many people that have scored something in a particular way, it tends to mean, probability here, it tends to mean it's going to get nominated. It's going to be in the category for, Game of the Year or whatever. It's just the math of it. There's a jury process. There's a number of people voting. And when you look at the barometer that a game gets within Metacritic and OpenCritic, it's a general approximation of where a game's landing. And that is how you can extrapolate from that information and data. Yeah, this one's probably going to get nominated. Like, no one's looking at Expedition 33 and being like, well, it's going to get nominated because I liked it a lot. They're saying it's probably going to get nominated and even win because of the overwhelming amount of praise that it got. What are we doing when we're doing that? We are fundamentally making a mathematical argument when we do that. When we make that argument, we're making a mathematical argument. You're looking at the overwhelming amount of data in support of Expedition 33, and you're saying, yeah, it's probably going to win. You're making a mathematical argument when you do that. So anytime I look at these totals, OpenCritic, Metacritic, I'm always making a mathematical argument. I'm not arguing subjectivity. I'm not arguing opinion. I'm not arguing who's right or wrong. I'm saying, yeah, this is likely how things are going to turn out. I'm making a probability prediction based on all available data. Right? At an 87? At an 87, there is a high probability that Yōtei doesn't get a nomination because there are so many games above it. Now, the thing you've got to remember, it is, again, a mathematical equation. So something can have a higher score than Yōtei, but maybe it has less reviews. Well, now it's not going to have enough in its corner, right? Like, let's say you've got something, somebody put something in the Discord the other day. It was a game that had like 20 reviews, and it had like a 92 or something, okay? 92. Well, only 20 people have reviewed it. So mathematically, it's unlikely that game's going to get a nomination. Why? There's not going to be enough people voting. It's a quantitative issue. You're not going to have enough quantity of people saying, oh yeah, that game should be nominated, because it only has 22 reviews. That doesn't take away from the game's score. That doesn't take away from the game's quality. Again, this is purely a mathematical discussion. It's like, well, it's probably not going to get a vote. So you can have something with a higher score than something else that doesn't get a nomination because it doesn't have enough reviews. Yeah, Hades could run into that. Hades only has 34 reviews right now. Well, hang on, though. That's one platform, isn't it? What's the total review count for Hades? I think Hades 2 will be fine. Hades 2 has 49 critic reviews. So Yōtei already has more. That could pose a problem for Hades 2. Hades 2 could run into the mathematical problem where, yeah, it's got a 94, but it has like 1/3 of the reviews that like a Kingdom Come Deliverance or like an Expedition 33 has. It's got like a smaller group. 50 people. If all 50 people vote for it, it might not be enough because there's going to be other games that have more outlets voting for it. So Ghost of Yotei has that as an advantage. And 87, let's just say at the end of the week, Ghost of Yotei review score is 87 and has 150 scores, 150 reviews. That could end up helping it. An 87 with like 150 reviews might end up being stronger than like a 94 with only 50 reviews because you just have more people. You have a higher probability of people voting for you because more people gave your game a good score. Hades will probably have enough to get a nom, especially. I expect reviews to climb the next few days. That can tend to happen, Cat Uncle. So Hades having such a strong score will provoke people to go play it and then review it, so the 50 will climb. Therefore, it could end up getting more votes by the time we walk into November. Yōtei, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Death Stranding 2 are getting snubbed. Or Death Stranding 2 are getting snubbed. Somebody's not making it. Somebody's not making it. I, again, am just going to keep coming back to it's a great year for gamers if that's what's going on. Hey, somebody ordered some coffee. Mike on the mic ordered a bag of the Frickmas and a bag of the Dark. If you guys go to reforgeroast.com or use the coffee command in chat, that is a great way to support what we do here. Looking here through just the responses to the score on Twitter, seems like most people seem happy with the score. Definitely not going to be Kojima. Do you think you might expand the field? Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if Keeley's going to say, you know what, let's go with 8 nominations this year, because you're going to leave something off that really deserves the nom. You know? So he may say, listen, it's too close. We've got to let some other games up here. Because if you have like a multi-way tie, they might justify saying, well, we have seven nominations this year. Cardoc Ren, thank you so much for 50 months of subs. Thanks for using your Prime over here on Purple. We're at 464. Thank you, boys, for a strong week already. We're not even Friday. It sets a bad precedent to expand the field. The size of the field shouldn't be a point of argument every year. I don't like limits for limits' sake, says Jesse. Expand the category. Give everyone their recognition. Here's what I would say. And this is just my opinion, so I'm not in charge of anything. But if I were in charge, I would say this is the threshold to get a nom. Anything that hits this threshold gets a nom. So if we have 7, we have 7. If we have 8, we have 8. If we have 5, we have 5. That's what I would do. We have this many people voting. If we get this many votes. So what you'd end up with is, as long as you get a percentage of the votes, you're getting a nom. That's how I would do it. Thank you so much, Stonespire. I know what you're doing. Stonespire is trying to bait a 10 bomb to 475. He hits 465. Somebody do it quick. 2 5s or a 10. Joker Quinn's going to come in and ruin this. Jaster might ruin it. Even Pathlon Phoenix has been ruining these setups. Stonespire is so faithful to set these up. One of the most generous people here in this community. That's just how I would do it. I would set like a floor and say, as long as you're above this floor, you get nominated. Some years that means we're going to have 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 8. You know? Think about it like this. If you have 6 nominations and your 7th and 8th place are single digits away, like they're 4 or 5 votes away from 6th place, it's like, come on, what are we doing here? There should be a pretty good gap between the 6 that get nominated and the rest. Like, there's got to be at least some kind of a gap. Now, you're always going to say, well, you could back that lineup for forever. You could end up with 25 nominations if you keep going with that logic. Go until there's a big gap. If it's a quantitative thing, and you're like, we have 100 people voting, and as long as you get this many votes or higher, you get a nomination. I think you would end up some years with 5, 6, sometimes 8. I think that's fine. No, Hades didn't win Game of the Year. Hades got nominated. Shouldn't they do multiple rounds of nominations? Everything that hits the threshold you're talking about, and then whittle it down to a top few? Yeah, maybe. But I mean, typically what you do there, Raijin, is you whittle it down to the winner. Right? You basically get all of your noms, and then you're like, well, this one got the most, so it's the winner. What's your game of the year? Right now, my game of the year is Expedition 33. Yōtei might take the crown from everything I read today. The Ghost of Yotei review trend is really good. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to like this game quite a bit. You know what I mean? I think I'm going to like it quite a bit. I'm sort of eating really good right now because Ghost of Tsushima and Returnal are 2 of my all-time favorite games. And so we got a great look at Saros yesterday, which is basically the sequel to Returnal. It's a spiritual sequel. And then Yotei's next week. I mean, it's a good time. It's a good time for me, particularly to the games that I love. And I've already had a great year. I've already played some great games. I've already played, Split Fiction and Death Stranding 2 and Expedition 33 and First Berserker Kazan. I'm loving Borderlands 4 right now, co-op with my wife. We're like, I think we hit 25 hours last night. This is the most co-op I've played with her in a long time because Split Fiction didn't take us this long. I don't think. I think Split Fiction took us about 20 hours. I think. Oh yeah, no, I played Doom: The Dark Ages as well. Doom: The Dark Ages, it didn't land as strongly with me as I was hoping. I thought I was going to absolutely love that game, and I ended up liking it. I was like, yeah, this is fine. I didn't like the ending, but yeah, Doom: The Dark Ages is another one that I enjoyed. See last place. Zubair says, if an 11-win team doesn't make the playoffs, that doesn't mean you change the playoffs. The team would have gotten 12 wins. Sorry, bad break. I don't think that's a great analogy because we're talking about nominations based on opinion, not based on performance, right? We're not talking about who got the most wins and losses, which is a very, like, I think that's a pretty bright line. That's a pretty, like, you didn't get enough wins and losses. And you're like, well, they didn't get enough votes. And I'm saying it's people nominating, and if you're playing the math of it and you're saying out of the 100 votes, as long as you get this many votes, you're nominated, I think that would raise it. Think of it like this. Instead of saying, we're just going to take the 6 top, you say, no, we think this is the threshold for nomination. You're still doing the same thing. But what you're saying is you're saying anything that gets this many votes should be up there on the podium, instead of saying we'll just take the top 6. And the reason that I'm saying this is because when it's this competitive, you might have enough votes to get a nomination in previous years, but now you don't because it's so competitive and it thins out the amount of points available. It's not like the amount of points that you can score in a game where if you play better, you get more points. It's like, well, if it's super competitive, there's less votes to go around. That's not something that you didn't do a good enough job to. Does that make sense? Like, I think I'm making a pretty good argument, but it might not be clear. If there are that many games vying for the position, there's less votes to go around. It's not that you scored less points. It's like, well, we ran out. Do you see? If you play really, really well and you score as many points as you possibly can, that would be like them coming to you and saying, yeah, I'm sorry, we ran out of points. Yeah, you only scored 11 this game instead of 20 because we ran out of points. That's what happens in a competition like this. Is like they run out of votes. It's not that you didn't score enough. It's that they run out of people. Who gets to vote? It's a jury process. It's a select jury of, like, I don't even know. What is it, like 110 or 107? I don't even know the number. Being like, yeah, if you would have gotten one more vote, you'd have gotten in. And it's like, well, let's just take Yōtei as an example. Ghost of Yotei had no bearing on the number of games that came out this year that are excellent. They have no bearing on that. They did an excellent job. They got a good score. But because there's so many games that came out, that would be like you did a really great job this year in your sport, but there was suddenly 10 extra teams in your bracket. And you're like, what the frick? Like, so now instead of being in 3rd place, we're in 7th and we don't get to go to the playoffs? Like, do you see what I'm saying? The quantity of games increases. That's why I think it should be relative to the percentage of the votes. If you get enough, you just get a nomination. It's like, well, yeah, this year there were eight games that pulled a strong enough ratio to be nominated. Instead of being like, yeah, sorry, there was way more games this year, so you don't get in. I agree with Zubair, but perhaps racing or Olympic score will be a better analogy. No, I don't think so, because if one year you drove fast enough to get 3rd place, and the next year there was 6 extra cars on the course, and you just mathematically got bumped back and raced just as well, you'd be like, this is ridiculous. I didn't place because you added more cars to the competition. That's what I'm saying, is the competition year to year changes because the quantity of games is never the same. Like, some years you've got 20 games that could be in contention, and other years maybe 10. I get what you're saying. If 15 games got a score over 90, some of them are getting snubbed. I'm not even talking about the score. I'm just talking about the votes. If you have 6 games get nominated, okay, and 4, 5, and 6 have almost an identical vote count to 7, 8, and 9, okay, 7, 8, and 9 had no control over the number of games that came out. They made excellent games, and they literally ran out of votes. It's like, well, they would have gotten more votes. There was too many games. You see what I'm saying? again, it kind of feels like, well, yeah, you didn't score enough points because you ran out of points. We ran out of points to give you. Nintendo always scores high and never get Game of the Year noms. What? Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze? Generally speaking, Nintendo's up there. A VIP renewal from James, 39 months. Love to say to play coverage. I'm a fan of X-Men in the 90s. Wolverine is right up my alley. Insomniac killed it. They killed it, dude. We're at 466 on the week. Thank you. Zelda won Game of the Year, yeah, and then Super Mario Brother Wonder got a nomination, and then Tears of the Kingdom got a nomination, and then Donkey Kong Bonanza could be getting a nomination. Sounds like Lono wants participation trophies for good games. That is such an egregious misrepresentation of what I'm saying. I'm surprised that wasn't typed by a troll looking for clickbait, Zubair. I am not asking for participation trophies. What I'm saying is that when you have an increase in quantity, there should be a mathematical equation that accounts for that and says, look, we're going to run out of votes. That doesn't mean that these games aren't worthy of nomination. It means there's more games came out. Your game's quality should not be diminished simply because more games came out. That's my point. Think of it like this. You have X number of games in a year that land in the low 90s. Okay? If there's way more games in the low 90s and you get squeezed out by the sheer math of it, it's not that you don't deserve the nom, it's that you're just going to run out of votes. It's like, I think you should do a ratio that says, especially on more competitive years, if you pull a percentage, if you pull a ratio, if you pull a number, you're getting nommed. We're not just going to take the top 6, because 7, 8, and 9 could literally be right there in contention of a previous year, but this year more games came out. It's not that those games are better, it's just that there's more games that came out, so you run out of votes. It's not diminished quality, it's not being good enough for that year. That's how competition goes. You have to be good enough for the given context. I'm just going to keep coming back to the racing analogy. If one year you raced fast enough to place third, and the next year there's 10 more runners on the course, and you did as good of a job, but you lose because there's more people on the course, they edge you out by like a split second. It's like, what do you mean? You increase the number of competitors. You increase the number of competitors. I lost to math. I didn't actually get outraced. What do you mean? Like, you could be like, well, no, they did get outraced. They got outraced by milliseconds. And those 10 runners were faster? Right, okay. You lost to other racers that were faster, right? In this equation, you've got games that have almost identical scores. So how do you determine, well, they won because they're in the top 6. You don't get a nomination, but in previous years you would have? Like, in one year, that would have been enough votes. And now it's not because more games came out. I don't know. We're debating whether or not they could have a larger pool of nominations. Like, it's only supposed to be 5, just so we're clear. So there's only supposed to be 5. And if they do 6, it means there was a tie. Okay? It wouldn't surprise me at all if this year they're like, yeah, there's a tie. And we end up at like 7 or something. Like, positions 5, 6, and 7 could have a very, very similar vote count. So we could get an increase in nominations by the sheer nature of the race being really, really close. That's what we're debating. Whether or not they could just say, there's too many games. We've got to increase the number of nominations. And people are like, well, that's a participation trophy. I'm like, I think the math of it's just to say, the increase in quantity of games is absurd, so we're going to increase the number of nominations. At the Olympics, if you get a strong year, do you give out extra medals? Well, no, the analogy only goes so far. I'm just pressing against the notion that, like, yeah, you don't deserve the nomination because more games came out. It's like, Was their game good? Was their game high score? Was their game worthy of a nomination? Like, imagine getting a game this year that's got like a 92 that doesn't get a nom. What? Like, why? And you're like, well, it's just a more competitive year. Like, okay. I feel like a percentage of the votes is all it should take. So some years you're going to have 8 nominations. And you're like, listen, we think this is the threshold for nomination. Rather than say that it's relative to the other game that comes out, the nomination is based off of where the game landed in the general consensus of the vote. Does that make sense? I'm saying the nomination should be relative to the game's quality, not the game's quality in relation to the number of games that came out that year. Does that make sense? I'm arguing a philosophical position here. I'm not arguing the math of it. I'm saying if this game is a 92, it shouldn't get bumped just because, well, yeah, a bunch more games came out, so you didn't get a nom relative to other games. What does that have to do with it? Isn't it based off the game's quality? If the game is in a Game of the Year category or Game of the Year level of excellence, it should get a nomination. We've had previously that games with a lower score. I'm not basing it purely off of score. I'm just saying that when a game scores that high, it just seems really weird to be like, sorry, you didn't get a nomination because more games came out this year. If your game would have released last year, you'd have got a nom. You see? So you're saying getting into the Olympics, if you get in this time, you get in? No. I just said the sports analogy doesn't work that well. Somebody threw out a racing analogy, and I modified it a little bit. You guys do this thing where you press on an analogy, and you're like, well, what if there was 7 judges one year and then 8 the next? What if one of the judges was sick and from out of town? And it's like, stop it. You're pushing the analogy too far. The sports analogy doesn't work because it was off the cuff, and like I was responding to somebody else. What I'm saying is that if a game hits a threshold of votes that is good enough this year, every year that should be the threshold for the nomination. So some years you're going to have 5, some years you're going to have 7. You're going to say, listen, we think this is the threshold of votes required for a nomination, and as long as you hit that threshold, you get in, instead of just taking the top 5. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I just think it's a different way of looking at it. You're saying this is the bar of excellence. If you hit this bar, you get a nomination. Instead of, well, you hit this bar, but like 7 other games came out this year that got 90s, so you lose. Yeah, reviews are out for Yōtei. It got an 87. I don't think Yōtei's going to get a nomination. I think there's too many games above it. I'm not even arguing for Yōtei. I'm arguing for like some of the other titles that I feel like somebody's getting bumped, that for all intents and purposes deserves to be up there. I don't even think it's Yōtei. I think Yōtei's too low. You're way off. If last year your card did the last... Yeah, I'm not engaging with the sports analogy anymore. I'm not arguing the sports analogy. I'm arguing within the way this functions. I have left the sports analogy behind. I don't think it's a compelling argument. I think what's a more compelling argument is to say, if there's this many votes, we have said that this quantity is what it takes to get in. You didn't get the quantity, you don't get a nomination. That would mean some years, think of it this way, some years you would only have 4 nominations because 2 or 3 of them would gobble up all the count. You know what I mean? If there was like a knockdown, drag-out fight for, 5th, 6th, and 7th place, and they all kind of cannibalized each other because they were in like the 80s or something, and there was like a handful of crazy good games that ate up all the votes, they'd be like, yeah, there's only 4 that hit the threshold. What happens in a year with a unanimous winner? I don't think that would ever happen, that like nobody gets enough votes. There's just like one game in the category. I don't think that would never happen. I think Lono's case is valid. It's like a sports Hall of Fame vote. You get a percentage of the votes, you're in or you aren't. Some years you get 2 Hall of Famers, others you get 7. Yeah, I do. I think it should be, it's called a hypothetical. Well, it's a hypothetical that wouldn't happen. Therefore, the hypothetical is worthless in the discussion. It wouldn't happen. Entertaining the hypothetical, that'd be like, well, Lono, what happens if you bounce off a diving board and you end up going through the stratosphere and crash into the moon, and then we no longer get waves on the beaches? Like, that's never going to happen. So, like, entertaining the hypothetical doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical to be like, well, what if everybody voted for the same game? That's never going to happen. There's too many outlets, too many opinions, too much subjectivity, and too many games coming out. The hypothetical is worthless to the discussion because it would never happen. Like, everybody voted for this game. We have one nomination this year. We have very different understanding of what hypotheticals are for. I think the degree to which a hypothetical is hyperbolic serves the discussion, and the more extreme you go, the less it serves the discussion, because you're like, well, it would never happen, so why entertain it? You know what I mean? Like, what if on the way to Ohio we get in an 18-car pileup and it takes us 85 days to get there because they have to clear the debris from the wreckage, and there was a tanker that, you know, had biohazardous material in it? It's like, what the frick? Like, you can go so hyperbolic that it doesn't serve the discussion, because it's like, why even spend time talking about that? That's never going to happen. They only vote for one game. I thought they voted for a top 5. I think they do. I think they vote for a top 5, which is why what I'm saying is like, as long as you hit a threshold, you should get a nom. So I think some years you'd have 7, and then some years you'd have 5, you know. And this is why I'm doing this. They say multiple years in a row we've had 6 nominations because there's a tie. So positions 5 and 6 are tied. What if positions 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all like 1 vote away from each other? And then after that, it falls off, and like positions 9, 10, and 11 are like, you know, 5 to double digits behind. Okay. You see what I'm saying? It's like they're so close to the threshold. Set the threshold, and if they hit the threshold, they get the nomination. Instead of just being like, well, no, we're just going to tabulate it, and the top 5 get in. Top 5 get the noms. And then they do ties. So like if, you know, this game and this game got the exact same number of votes and they're fighting for position 5, well, then they both get the nom, and then you have 6. Even if there's a year where no game meets the previously established thresholds for scores or votes, we could easily adjust. I mean, that again feels like a hyperbolic hypothetical where, like, I don't think there would be a year where, like, yeah, the highest scored game this year was a 77. Like, that would be really, really... That would be so unlikely. It doesn't feel like it's worth entertaining, because it's like, I don't think that would ever happen. You don't build the system for an extreme that is so low on the probability scale. Like, that just isn't going to happen. I don't think you're going to have a year where, like, nothing gets a high enough score. Well, even then it wouldn't matter. Even then it wouldn't matter. If the highest score for the year is 77, you're still going to have people voting, and they're still going to pick their top 5. And out of the 100 people voting, I'm just throwing out the number 100. Out of the 100 people voting, you're still going to have people that hit the percentage for the nomination. I think it's an interesting discussion. I mean, obviously, we couldn't talk about the Ghost of Yotei reviews for the entirety of the 2 to 3 hour stream that we typically do. I think it's an interesting discussion to ask, you know, philosophically, do you just take the top 5 every year, or do you say, no, we have determined based on all previous years, if you get this many votes, you get the nom. So some years you would have more noms than others. And you would say, we're not picking the top 5. We've set a bar. And if you hit it, you get a nom. You'd have categories in, think about like this. Let's leave Game of the Year off the table for a second and think about like the indie category, the breakout category. Think about the performance category where people do an incredible job with the voice acting. Some years, it would be great to see 8 people honored with the nomination. Why? Because they hit the threshold. They got enough votes. Some years, it'd be great to see 8 indie titles up there getting showcased. Why? You hit the threshold. You did a great job. You got enough votes. Instead of, oh, sorry, a bunch of indie titles came out this year and, you were 1 vote shy of getting in. Like, what? You see? Like, I don't know. I think the spirit of it could just be philosophically adjusted to say, based on all previous years and the average threshold of getting a nomination, we think as long as you get this many votes, you should get a nomination in a given category. We have 77 days. Yeah. I'm struggling to understand how Yōtei is different from AC Shadows in terms of story, tone, setting, playstyle, etc. I'm not going to try and help you with that. There's enough videos around to do that. That feels like bait to me. WGC with 22 months and a member plus. Feels like unless new game... Wait, is this? Oh, Ninja Gaiden 4, Overwatch 2 come out with 90 Metacritics. This year's Game of the Year noms are locked. Expedition 33, Silksong, Hades, Donkey Kong, Death Stranding 2, and Split Fiction. Let me add you to the total here. There are a mountain of videos and blogs making it very clear where Yōtei diverges. I'm not taking that part-time job right now to educate you. Do your research. They're vastly different games. So, and I played a lot of AC Shadows. So you're not saying if you pass a certain Metacritic? No, I was never arguing the Metacritic, Trill. I was just saying it would be crazy to me to see a game with hundreds of reviews and a 92 not even get a nom. Like, that's insane to me to be like, you how does that happen? That's what I'm saying. You hit a threshold of votes, you get a nom. Because it would be really unlikely. It would be really, really unlikely that something would land that high in a year and not get enough votes to in the system that I'm outlining. Like, let's just take for an example like a Forza Horizon 5. It had like 103 reviews and it got a 92, right? I feel like that's a year where that one should have been up there. Why in the world would that not have been up there, right? Game of the Year. It got nominated, I think, in a couple other categories, but it was like... But I think what happens is people go to vote. They've only got 5 votes. They're like, well, racing game. And they end up not voting for it. I don't think that means it didn't get enough votes. I'd be interested to see how many it got. I think that, to me, would be interesting. In a given year, can you show me how far outside of the nomination pool a given game is? Like, how far outside of the nomination pool was Forza Horizon 5? Was it a handful of votes away, or was it by a significant amount? I would just be interested. Like, was it almost there? Was it close, or was it not even close? Because sometimes what can happen is, like a fighting game or a racing game can get lauded and praised within its category, but in the overall conversation for Game of the Year, it just falls out of the frame, which is unfortunate, but I kind of get why that happens. It's like, we're voting for Game of the Year here, like the 9th racing game or fighting game in a given franchise. I mean, we don't really need to nominate that. We know the racing games are going to look incredible every time they come out. You know, every year they're going to look more and more amazing. You know, and you're going to laud them and give them praise within their given category, but then as soon as you're talking Game of the Year, I feel like a lot of the times those games just drop out of the frame. There's a Bayonetta First Descendant collaboration coming. I guess that got announced today. AC Shadows has an 81. I think that's a really good score for AC Shadows. Let me see if Ghost of Yotei's score on OpenCritic hasn't moved. It's still just at 66. It also hasn't moved on Metacritic. 103 reviews, 87. So that's pretty much going to set that score probably as a cemented thing. Thank you, Diablo Dark Matter. I'll go ahead and pause those. Has a racing game ever been nominated? I don't know if a racing game or a fighting game's ever been nominated for Game of the Year. 127th open world Ubisoft checklist game definitely deserves it more than a fighting game or a racing game. I don't think anybody said that. I don't think anybody was saying that AC Shadows deserved the nomination. To be honest, the noms are almost always top rated. This is the only weird one. Yeah, the Black Myth Wukong nomination was strange, but again, what I think happened is, I think with time, the internal discussions at the outlets helped Black Myth climb. So there were plenty of people that played Black Myth, and kind of similarly to how a lot of the outlets voted Lies of P lower than the users did, I think something similar happened with Black Myth. I think there were people that were just like, yeah, okay, it's another one of these, and it didn't score all that well. I think when they all started discussing it, they were like, listen, this game is insanely popular. Look at the user scores. Look at the general reception. And also, if Hank did the review for it, and Steve, Bob, Tim, and Susan are all like, we actually thought the game was better than you scored it, it could end up getting nominated. Like, I think Black Myth was a conversational nomination. Like, at the outlets, they were discussing this, and they were like, listen, Black Myth deserves better treatment than it got. Like, you only have one person per outlet that counts in the Metacritic. There were other people at these outlets that probably, you know, campaigned and said, that's a game worthy of nom. And listen, if you go to the PlayStation Store of Black Myth Wukong, I have to admit that I'm in the minority here. I thought it ran like absolute caca on the PlayStation. It's sitting with the 4.5. You can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. I concede that. I readily concede that. Almost 200,000 reviews, and it's got a 90% on PlayStation. What's its score on Steam? Hang on. I typed Xbox Store. I want Steam. This is its score on Steam. Now, this is my regional score, by the way, 65,000. It's got way more, I'm pretty sure, if you go include the Chinese region. A 94%. I can argue the game is reviewing higher than it would for reasons unrelated to the game. And I think the law of large numbers would repudiate that, because there's no way you could tell me that 200,000 on a Japanese-based console that has almost no footprint in the Chinese market. I don't think the Chinese culture rallied around Black Myth Wukong on PlayStation. I think people like the game. It's that simple. Occam's razor here. Come on. There is absolutely no way that a game has a 90% on PlayStation from 200,000 reviews, and you're going to be like, well, it was a bunch of chads and anti-woke bros and, you know, people who are really all about the Chinese culture. PlayStation has almost no footprint in that culture. I don't think so. I just don't think so. I think people liked it. I think people liked Black Myth. I didn't, because of the performance. I wanted to play it, and the performance was freaking terrible. I couldn't do it. I think people liked it. That's the simplest explanation. I concede that every time Black Myth comes up, I'm like, listen, man, that performance drove me crazy, but people clearly loved it. Now, it's sales, sure. Regionally, when you talk about it climbing the sales charts, yes, it sold most of its copies in one particular region, but that doesn't take away from the review score, especially on PlayStation. A $5 super chat from Alex. Something I want to throw out there. Imagine a Wolverine-themed yellow-blue PS5 Pro with 3 slits being in the metal, referencing his 3 claws. That would be cool. I mean, I think you're going to get your wish. I think you're going to get your wish. That sounds like an easy dunk right there. Yeah. If you guys haven't hit the like button yet, do me a favor and do that. I've not been harping on the like button. And we've had a really, really solid day covering the Ghost of Yotei reviews. We did a Ghost of Yotei review roundup. We now kind of have been discussing like Game of the Year, nominations, and the various categories and things like that. It's been a lively discussion. It's what we do here. It is what we do here. We have very, very fun and lively discussions. I'm just bummed that PlayStation's getting Forza. Why can't we get Marvel? Yeah, I mean, you're gonna. I think you're gonna get Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls on Xbox as well as Nintendo Switch. It just won't be at launch. Did Lost Soul Aside sell 20 million? Huh? What do you mean? Digital Foundry praised Yōtei? Yes, they did. Blade is coming. I think Blade is at least 2 or 3 years away. Yeah, I don't know what Lost Soul Aside sold. I don't think it sold very well. There's no way it sold very well. It doesn't have very many reviews on any platform. It might not have flopped commercially if they kept the budget down, like if they kept the budget low, but I would say it flopped. I mean, it's got a 58% on Steam. And I remember telling you guys that the score would drop on PlayStation continually. It's got a 3.6. It's got a 72 on PlayStation. That's a bad score on PlayStation. If you drop out of the 80s, that's not great. It's barely holding on to 70. Yeah. Yeah, Lost Soul Aside was part of the China Hero project, but it wasn't based off of the most popular Chinese folklore in history, like what Trill is saying. There's spoilers in the Digital Foundry video? Okay. Saying Black Myth only sold because it was a China game, then look at Lost Soul Aside. Okay. It's a mathematical fact to say that the majority of the commercial sales of Black Myth was in China. People try to interpret this as an insult because that's just what they do. These people are very, very dishonest. Nobody has said that. I have not said that. There's nothing wrong with saying that the majority of the sales were in the Chinese market. It's not surprising given the history of the story. That should be celebrated. People point this out to say, listen, it did very, very well. I actually think that statistic lends credence to the review score on the PlayStation platform. This is why people will, clip snipe and try to lie about a creator, because it's like, well, if you actually look at the bigger picture, the mathematical reality of the sales of Black Myth Wukong actually add credence to its score on PlayStation, because PlayStation has no footprint in the Chinese market, which means the 200,000 scores that it got and the great score that it has on PlayStation is a legitimate representation of the barometer of the consumer base that bought that game. It's not just people being like, oh, I'm so glad my culture's folklore is represented. Do you see? This is why it's important to just look at facts and stats and be honest about them, not interpret them in a negative way, and not try to make everybody look like an evil person. Like, I mentioned this once, and I had all these people in my comments being like, you can't believe you said this, da-da-da-da. It's like, I never said what you're saying I said. I'm assuming I'm somewhere in a video or a clip or something where people are claiming I said that. It's like, it's a mathematical fact, and it's good to be honest about these things, because now, in hindsight, you can combine that mathematical fact with another one. It's got a great score on PlayStation. And we know that the PlayStation console has almost no footprint in the Chinese market. Which means it's got a great score based on the game, not cultural issues or cultural folklore history. It's also interesting that anybody would try to come at me about Black Myth Wukong when I called out the hit piece by IGN, written by the same person who wrote a puff piece for Bungie. But, being fair, measured, and nuanced is absent in this market of misinformation. The amount of hype that was built up throughout the years before its launch, it's not even comparable. The PS5 was sold out in China, and the PS5 is selling twice as fast as the PS4 was. I think you're underselling Black Myth Wukong and PS5 in China. Okay. The regional score on Steam is another repudiation to the argument that you're trying to put forth. It has a great score on Steam, English region. Like, you know what I'm saying? English-speaking region score on Steam. What is that? You think that many people? I mean, I don't agree. $65,000 score. 65,000. Okay. 94%. Now, if you want to argue this is a bunch of like anti-woke chads who were angry about the IGN article, we're going to come back to the thing that we always say. The average gamer is not paying attention to any of that crap. They're not watching Twitter. They're not reading IGN articles. They bought the game. They liked the game. They gave it a good score. It's that simple. I don't think Black Myth... Listen, I'm the guy that didn't finish it because the performance on console is bad. And I'm going to defend it and say the users liked it and gave it a good score. Yes, there are people in the mix who are like, yay, Chinese folklore. I was raised on this story. Or, yay, we stuck it to the wokies. I don't think that's the majority. I think the majority of the people that gave it a good score are like, yeah, I liked it. Right? Case in point, 874 hours, 78 hours, 92 hours, 41 hours, 48 hours, 30 hours, 476 hours. Do these look like cultural warriors to you? Language doesn't equal region. I would hazard a guess that the vast majority of the 65,000 people that are reviewing it in English are not people with Chinese accounts that are like trying to pad the score in English. Check for an update. All right, hang on. How do you do that? Is there a button you can press, or do you just restart Steam? Like on my PlayStation, I just click the game and then click check for updates. It doesn't seem to be that option on Steam. Am I missing something? I'm just going to restart Steam. That'll probably do it. Here we go. Hades has an update. Borderlands has an update. Wait, did they push out an update yet for console? For Borderlands with the FOV slider? Because if Steam's getting an update, are they store page? Do we have any patch notes from Borderlands? I'm not seeing anything. Yeah, Hades is updating right now. They've not tweeted anything. Do we even know what this update is for Borderlands on Steam? They haven't said a thing. Do they have like a support account or something that does the patch notes? Somebody explain this Sonic racing game with amazing scores things that I'm hearing about. I think people love Sonic racing. Isn't there an option in the page in your library? Oh, so you go to the game's page in your library. Okay, then what do you do? Manage. I'm not seeing anything. What do you do to check for an update on a game that's installed? It's not a big deal. I reset Steam and Hades is updating, but what do you do to just check without resetting Steam? Is there something you can do? I mean, I don't care. Resetting Steam's pretty quick, but I'm not seeing an option to check for an update on a game. Right-click on the game in the PS5 menu. No. I'm talking about Steam. On PS5, I know you hit the little thing and you just hit check for update. We're talking about Steam. I don't see an option to do it. It's not a huge deal, but people are telling me I can do it, and I'm not seeing it. Right-click on the game and update? No. Once it knows there's an update, the update button is there. I'm talking about when... So I rebooted Steam, and now it's telling me that Borderlands and Hades have an update, okay? Without rebooting Steam, is there an option to just say, hey, check for an update? There doesn't seem to be one, and some people were telling me there was an option. Once it knows there's an update, yes, I can right-click Borderlands right now and I can say update. But that's because I rebooted Steam and now it knows there is one. I'm asking, without rebooting Steam, can I right-click a game and say, hey, can you check and see if there's an update available? Rebooting Steam doesn't take that long, so it's not a huge deal. Somebody said that you could, and I'm just not seeing it. Fran is saying that is not an option. Okay. Okay, Hades updated. I'm going to update Borderlands now. There isn't, as far as I'm aware. I recall from Destiny updates needing to restart Steam. I've only ever rebooted Steam. Okay, that's fine. You know, if I got PC boys in chat saying, yeah, I just reset Steam, it's not a huge deal. Steam restarted faster than it would have been trying to find the dadgum option. So it was quick. Okay. Borderlands update is 11 gig? They're doing an 11 gig update on PC, and I don't have patch notes. What the frick? What are they doing? That seems like a pretty big update. Hang on, they're mowing the lawn, and I'm getting hit on my ring every 2 seconds. Patch notes on Steam? Where? I don't see it. Sometimes there's the little blue button to click patch notes. I don't see it. Oh, here, wait, Fuzzy's got them. Borderlands update notes. Okay. Addressed various instances of hitching, low FPS, and crashes. Continuing to investigate. Will make further improvements to stability. Updated character animations. Graphics preset could be set to high or very high when using auto detect. Xbox corrected an issue where players would get a black screen after the vault symbol loading screen. Addressed rare issues of infinite loading screens. Improved loading of characters. Okay. Rewards and progression. It looks like they've made issues and changes to each of the various characters. Some gameplay updates and issues. Gear, UI, UX, visuals, settings and accessibility. They've got the field of view slider on console. Increasing the FOV past the default could cause some dips in performance. So it looks like they have added FOV to console. I will play this evening with Madam and I will report back. Field of view settings will now be changed for both users when playing split screen. You guys can let me know. I'm playing on a PS5 Pro with Madam. I will report back on our experience. I'm going to go ahead and let me schedule the Hades gameplay stream. Okay. All right. You can force update by right-clicking Properties Updates. Verify integrity of game files. So that's why everybody just reboots Steam. Have you played Hades at all to date? I played Hades, let me look, on May the 8th for 79 minutes. So I think isn't that when it went into early access that week? Like May the something? It says September the 25th. Its release date, I think its release date previously said like May 6th or something. So I played it for like an hour and 20 minutes. I think the week it went into early access. So I've not touched it since. So I'm excited to jump back in and see how 1.0 feels. I've always liked the look and feel of Hades. I wish I had time for it, honestly, because when they brought it to console, I could have been grinding out on the couch. So, unfortunately, if I feel like grinding a rogue, I'm like, I'm leveling guns in Returnal. Early access date was May the 6th. Yeah, I played on May the 8th, 2024. So the week it went into early access, I gave it an hour on the channel. Fun to play third-person PvEVP dungeon crawler. No thanks. You're pre-approved for a game that you will hate. PvPvE is something. Okay. FOV on the PS5 goes up to 110 on foot and vehicle. That's pretty good. I only need about 90 to feel good. What's the default? Belly boy. Does it what do you see what it is? Just put up BL4. FOV is so much better. What's the default, Tom and Belly, before you mess with it? Is it like 70? I swear it's like freaking 70. It's so dadgum low. 75. I freaking knew it. Good golly, that's low. I can't believe they didn't even push for like 80 or 85. Golly goodness, 75? Wasn't that the default for like Destiny 1? I feel like that was the default for Destiny 1. Like 70 or something. It just, oh my gosh. My wife doesn't complain almost ever about frames per second or anything in a game. She noticed that Revenge of the Savage Planet was 30 FPS, and she complains about it doesn't feel like you're running in Borderlands. It just doesn't. You're just like it's like a light jog. It's like the difference between walking and sprinting is, yeah. Whew. Barely moving, boys. Whoever put the control scheme thing that they found in Reddit for Borderlands in the Discord, I tried it last night, and it did make things feel better. I'm interested to see how it feels now that the FOV isn't terrible. Sorry, Wilbur. I'll pause them. Can we get 300 likes on the video? We're going to chill for a little bit. I got the Hades stream scheduled. We'll go to it in a while here. What's good, Ocean Blue? How are you? Vex moves fast. But this game is an 8. What game is an 8? What game are you talking about? And I don't... Is 8 a problem? Some of the BL4 mechanics annoy the life out of me. I think weapon switching is the worst thing about it. I love Borderlands 4, but the weapon switching is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. We've got details on PlayStation's Wolverine. Marvel's Wolverine arrives on PlayStation 5 fall of 2026. Hey, bub, we know it's been a minute, so let's cut to the chase. Marvel's Wolverine is set to launch on the PlayStation 5 consoles in the fall of 2026, and we have a brand new trailer just for you. Additionally, we're proud to include descriptive audio for the trailer. Not only do we have a new trailer, we're also revealing the game's cover art. Okay, here we go. Bold, resilient, and volatile, Wolverine is a character that all of us at Insomniac are thrilled to explore in collaboration with our friends at Marvel Games and Sony Interactive Entertainment. Like Marvel's Spider-Man franchise, we're once again combining our superpowers to deliver an original take on a beloved character based on Marvel Comics. Our Wolverine, aka Logan, is played by actor Liam McIntyre, who taps into the rage, the pain, the nuance of the iconic character. In this story, he is on the hunt to uncover the secrets of a dark past that keeps eluding him. Unfortunately, in this world, we'll have to dig his claws deep to pull any shred of information that may lead to answers. Often that means shredding into a relentless onslaught of enemies who aim to stop him by any means necessary, fueled by unflinching resilience and a rapid healing factor. Wolverine won't go down easy if it means keeping the mission on task. Logan is the quintessential reluctant hero, haunted by the consequences of unleashing the beast within. Once the claws come out, Wolverine doesn't hold back. As a living weapon forged against his will, he'll use razor-sharp adamantium to dispatch enemies and untamed berserker rage to build momentum on the battlefield. He'll leave an impression on foes. It's fast, fluid, rapid attacks. Okay, do we have any details here? This is just fluff. Excuse me. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I'm not reading anymore. I love PlayStation and I'm excited about Wolverine, but good golly, that's just fluff. There's no details there. First details on its ferocious combat. That's just a bunch of fluff. I thought they were going to actually give some details about like how it works, not like it's awesome and ferocious. Like I know that. I watched the trailer. I have eyeballs. I don't need you to tell me that what I looked at was awesome and ferocious. I'm not knocking the blog. I just don't have any interest in reading. You're going to rip and tear and slice and dice. Okay, I assumed that. Salutations. After more than 4 years of development, it's our pleasure to present 1.0 of Hades 2. As one of our early access players, you're seeing this special message for the first and last time. Your support in early access was essential to making this game. We hope that you enjoy experiencing the true ending of the story as well as finishing touches that we've added, our biggest project in more than 15 years. And our first ever sequel. The conclusion of early access also means we expect to wind down on updates on Hades 2 once we ensure the launch is as problem-free as possible. Then we'll return to the shadows for a while and plan our next move. For now and forevermore, good luck killing time. I think they're going to make a third. Don't you think? I mean, they might move on, but I would bet they make a third. Hades 2 is going to be too successful for them to be like, yeah, I think we're done. I think we're going to make heaven next or purgatory. I think they're going to make a third. Capital time there. I see what they did. Good luck killing time. Oh, is that what? Is that like the final boss in Hades 2? Time itself? Is that like... is that what they're doing? Chronos. Oh. Got it. PlayStation is looking to have a great 26. 4 first-party games launching. Saros, Wolverine, MLB The Show, and Marathon. Even if Marathon fails, they still have a great lineup, with saying that's not including the second and third party. Well, it also depends on how you classify Phantom Blade Zero, because like they don't own the studio or the property, but they're publishing it. So like I feel like publishing efforts matter as much as ownership. That's been my opinion for a while now. Like publishing efforts matter significantly. Like that's how you get games like Stellar Blade and Helldivers 2, right? So yeah, killer lineup. Take Marathon off the table. I don't care about that game. It's also from an independent subsidiary of PlayStation. So frick Bungie and their game, right? Heartfelt. It's personal. Watching them crash and burn is slightly enjoyable. Saros, Wolverine, MLB The Show, Phantom Blade Zero. That's a big year. That's a big year. You know? I said after what Hiroki Totoki said in that one interview, I was like, I bet they're going to uptick the cadence because they're entering second half of the gen, and that's when the cadence picks up. And this year, I was hoping for a surprise third game because Death Stranding 2 and Yōtei are huge games if you really think about it. Those are monumental. Those are big undertakings. They're big games. They're high quality. Top shelf games. I was hoping for that third surprise. I was hoping for like a Venom for the holidays or something. But next year, it's like, okay, nope, we're going to tick it up one more time. You're going to get Saros. You're going to get Wolverine. You're going to get MLB The Show. You're going to get Phantom Blade Zero. You know, that's huge. Bro tried to sneak Marathon in there at the end and thought we wouldn't notice. I had to give him a look, Trill. You know, I had to give him that look your mama gives you when you curse in front of her. You know, like, hey, I heard that, you know. I mean, people think I like have it in for Marathon. I was just like, I said from the beginning it didn't sound like a promising game. I don't have it in for the game. It just doesn't sound like a promising game. And then they showed a game that doesn't look very promising. Really mind-boggling how NetEase is doing better with Destiny Rising than Bungie is doing with D2. You mean lots of money and an addictive content loop with, a satisfying universe and shooting and some gacha is doing well? No. Who would have thought that such a thing could be successful on mobile? And a game that's been running for 11 years is out of gas? I agree. Just wish the gaming community was more patient. PlayStation has yet to let us down. I mean, I saw somebody pushing that notion yesterday during State of Play. There was this, we used to get bangers every 6 months. And I'm like, okay, what era of time are you talking about? And it's probably that era of time that people point to where games are being developed by second and third party studios that are now first party, and their development timelines were shorter. Yeah, you were getting games quicker back then, sure. They weren't first party yet, also. We need to remember that. And also, the timeline for some of those games, yeah, it was shorter than the timeline for games now. Do you want a game to look and run as incredible as like Death Stranding 2 looks? Do you want a game to look and run as incredible as like what we're hearing about Ghost of Yotei? If that's what you want, then you've got to wait. You've got to wait. Like, that's what's going to happen. And also, the cadence of game delivery has been impressive from Insomniac especially. From Sucker Punch, it's been 5 years. Boom, here's Yōtei. Death Stranding, how long has it been? When did Death Stranding 1 even come out? Was that 2019? Yeah, 2019. So it's like, that's 6 years. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, the cadence of delivery has been fine. Now, the only one you could say that's not been in a good cadence, you could say Naughty Dog, because they wasted time on the online thing. But like, They delivered a Game of the Year winner 5 years ago. They were probably counting on delivering Factions this year. You know, I'm just assuming that was the timeline they were shooting for. That didn't happen. So sure, you could do that one. And you could say, well, Bend wasted time on a live service and so did Bluepoint. Okay, that's fair. But I feel like the rest of the studios have been absolutely delivering, whether Guerrilla or Santa Monica or Insomniac. And then you have publishing efforts like Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2. You've got offshoot games like Astrobot that nobody expected and was just such a joy and just so fun. Thank you, Detonator. I'm just now seeing this. I'm sorry. 6 months of renewal. Bumping the line to 468. So this idea that, like, man, we used to get bangers every 6 months, it's like, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe. I don't know. I think a lot of that's overstated. I think there's a lot of rose-colored glasses for that era of time. But I also think timelines for games have gotten longer. And if we can't adjust our expectations, then you're just always going to be frustrated. Also, wouldn't you rather wait for a game and have it be at the quality we're hearing that Yōtei is being delivered at instead of have it be rushed? This is why I always feel like gamers, we can get trapped into talking out of both sides of our mouth. I'm so sick of these games. They come out and they're not ready, you know, and they rush them and they're not polished. And then game studios take their time, their nose down, they don't say anything, and then boom. Look at Wolverine next year. You're like, oh my gosh, it looks incredible. Well, they could have shoved it out before it was ready. They could have just kept showing you trailers. I mean, I guess they could have done that, but that seems to be something that people get tired of. I don't know. I get the desire maybe for updates. I get that, you know, maybe a blog post, a tweet here and there. I totally understand. I would prefer silence leading to excellence over what so many other companies do. There's so many other companies that do like what we got with Jedi Survivor, or what we got with Monster Hunter Wilds, or what we got with Borderlands 4. There's so many game companies that do that. It's like, well, yeah, okay, they delivered a game and they got you hyped and then it wasn't ready. I don't know. I would take silence leading to excellence every sinking time. If it means I wait longer, so be it. So be it. The game's going to be better when I finally sink my teeth into it. $5 super chat from DP Sage. What's up, bro? I'm at work. Quick summary on the reviews. 87 Metacritic, which is the exact score I predicted. Overwhelmingly positive reviews. There's, out of like 107, there's 9 that are in like the lower threshold. And their issues tend to be, you know, franchise fatigue. They're like, oh, it's an open world game that doesn't evolve the franchise enough. But then there were other reviews that thought that it did. People are saying that the story is better than Tsushima. I find that surprising. I don't know if I'm going to come to the same conclusion, but there are people saying that. The most significant and most consistent praise we have seen is the combat. People love the combat, and they love the performance and the world and the graphics. Like, those are banging on all cylinders in basically every review. Even the negative reviews were like, the combat is phenomenal, the world is beautiful. The things that people were kind of knocking it down a peg. And it's a little misleading because there's some 60% on Metacritic. They're 3 out of 5 stars. And I don't think I read a 60% review, because like a 60 is like a failing grade. 3 out of 5 is like they were tepid and lukewarm. Metacritic just doesn't do a good job interpreting that data point. It interprets a more middle-of-the-road review as a 60%. I don't think that's an appropriate interpretation of the score. I don't think when like Eurogamer or the One Outlet gives it a 3 out of 5, I didn't read reviews that were like, oh, it's a 60%, it sucks, it's failing. It's like, no, they were more tepid, they were more lukewarm to the game, so they gave it a 3 out of 5. Yeah, Digital Foundry is heaping praise on the game for performance and audio. I'm seeing multiple quotations that have me ecstatic. You guys know me and how often I sung the praises of ray tracing global illumination in Assassin's Creed Shadows on the Pro, maintaining 60. I said, it's the best looking game I've played this gen. You're going to be able to do that in Yōtei. You're going to be able to turn on GI and maintain 60. I can't freaking wait. I am super excited. That's a good meme, Fuzzy. That's a good meme. If you guys are enjoying the discussion, we've been talking about Ghost of Yotei review roundup. That's been the topic. We looked at the Ghost of Yotei review score, and I am ecstatic as a huge fan of Tsushima. I also, by the way, if you guys are interested and you haven't watched it yet, we do have a video on the channel, and it is called Ghost of Tsushima, What is Honor? So in anticipation for Yotei, if you feel like watching something that is sort of a breakdown of the story, the philosophy, the worldview, the argument, sort of that the game puts forth, it's a 33-minute mini documentary, basically. Does the game have bad reviews? No, it actually doesn't. The worst review I read wasn't a bad review. They were just like, they were more lukewarm to it. They were like, yeah, the open world didn't evolve enough. It felt too familiar. And they gave it a 3 out of 5. It wasn't a bad review. They weren't like, this is a bad game. They weren't scathing. They weren't like highly critical. It was very, I describe it as like soft criticism. It's like, well, yeah, the franchise open world action adventure game feels like the continuation of a franchise open world action adventure game. Like, okay. You know what I mean? It was like, it didn't seem like it was like a, oh my gosh, this game stinks. It was just kind of like, excuse me. I just realized my PC's not muted. Razor jumping back in with the VIP plus. Boom, bumping the line to 469. We are super close to the goal for the week, and then we can work on stretch goal tomorrow. If you guys hit the goal today, we're going to keep chatting, keep talking, keep hanging out. Thank you for hitting the like button. We're almost at 300 likes. Yeah, the FOV update came to Borderlands. We covered the PlayStation State of Play yesterday. Today we're covering Yōtei, and then we're going to be diving into Hades 2 gameplay. So thank you for all of the new subscribers to the channel. We greatly appreciate your continued support. We do a live show like this Monday through Friday, and we are fan-funded. So if you like to support channels directly and also get extra content, the Member Plus membership on YouTube is $6, or you can use a Prime on Purple, and those support me directly and help me to do this full time. There's a lot of YouTubers that you might have seen recently uploading videos and asking people to go to Patreon. I don't like to do that. I have a side project that I might put on Patreon one day, but here on the gaming channel, we try to push the members to say, hey, you get extra shows, extra content, and you get access to the Discord. Sounds like I don't want to play as a girl type of reviews under the guise of franchise fatigue. No, I don't think so. No, the review that I read, and then the Eurogamer review, I don't think at all it was like, I don't want to play as a girl, let me disguise my criticism. I told people before today, I said, Yotei's not going to be able to hold on to a 90. There's going to be too many people that are like, just sort of lukewarm toward the open world game. Now, I also said this. Given the tools they give you to play this game in a more exploratory, emergent feel, I wouldn't be surprised if the people that knocked it down a peg for being open world and having that fatigue, I bet you they played it like every other open world game and they were constantly opening their menu. They didn't once talk about the new spyglass mechanic, Married to the Wind, and how they've set up the game to keep you out of the menu and to keep you off the map and to keep you moving and exploring. They didn't talk about that. Why? I don't think they played that way. I'm not saying they played wrong, but if the developers innovate and give you a new way to experience the open world and you don't really engage with it, and then your criticism is, well, it plays like another open world game, it sounds like you really didn't do your due diligence. Like, to be like, yeah, it plays like every other open world game, It shouldn't, because they innovated on that. They literally gave you a new mechanic and a new tool set so that you don't have to play this like every other open world game. Did you just stay out of the menus on the map and free flow your exploration like a lot of us did with Breath of the Wild? Did you do that? Because they gave you the ability to play that way. If you rolled credits on Yōtei and you're like, yeah, it just felt like every other open world game, I'd bet money that you didn't engage with the new stuff. You just played it like another open world game. You got caught in an easy trap, but you got caught in the trap of being like, well, it's familiar. I'm going to play with it in a familiar way, and I'm not going to use the new stuff. Now, we all do this to a certain degree, right? You go back to fight the boss, and you don't change your strategy. You go back to fight the boss, and you don't change your loadout, right? We've all have these habits. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the handful of reviews that are like, yeah, you know, they didn't really innovate on the open world. It's like, did you try those new mechanics and systems that they built? Did you? Because it doesn't sound like you did. It's not a problem. If you wanted to play it that way, play it that way. But they gave you a new way to experience open world, and it doesn't sound like you engaged with it. The reviewers who gave Yōtei 3 stars and 70s knew good and well how those scores would affect the Metacritic score. I'm very curious to know how they scored Silksong and Clair Obscur. I would not agree with... I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't think any of these outlets are like, hey, we got to make sure and give it a 70 or a 3 out of 5. You know, we got to make sure and lower this. I don't agree with that. I don't think there's some kind of an agenda against the game. I don't think you score an 87 and there's some kind of like an agenda. I don't think so. I think people gave their genuine opinion. All I'm saying is that if your genuine opinion is that it plays like every other open world game, I'm going to say, did you engage with the open world systems that they built? That's what I'm going to ask. Like, did you engage with the open world systems and the new mechanics that they built? Because it doesn't sound like you did. It should not play like every other open world game. They've got a whole new thing you can do to prevent you from doing that. Joe Raptor said, don't mainline the campaign. Exploration is needed to unlock stuff. Right. Yeah. If someone played in that way and that's their genuine opinion, that's fine. I'm saying take their opinion with a grain of salt, on particular to the open world. It would be like playing a game. Let's give another example. If somebody rolled credits on Yōtei and said, yeah, the combat got really boring, the katana just didn't really do as good of a job as the katana in Tsushima. Now, what would you say in response? You would say, okay, dum-dum, they gave you 5 weapons. Why weren't you using the weapons? They built an entire system that you didn't engage with, and that's why you're being critical of the combat. It's the same thing. If you're going to be critical of the open world feeling like another open world game, they've got a whole new system that's unique to their game that you sounds like you didn't engage with it. It should not play like another open world game. Just like if somebody said, yeah, the combat's really boring, the katana gets really old, you'd be like, what do you mean? They gave you 5 weapons. Why didn't you use the other weapons? So of course you would conclude that the combat doesn't feel good. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying the criticism loses its legs in light of what we know they did to make it feel like a new open world experience and not just like another game that you've played before. It's a sequel to a game 6 out of 10 is wild to me. Well, here's the thing. Nobody gave it a 6 out of 10. Nobody gave it a 6 out of 10. That's the problem with the aggregate system. The problem's not the review. The problem is that Metacritic sees a 3 out of 5 and it just interprets it. It interprets the fraction. And it says, well, 3 out of 5 is a 60. The guy reviewing it isn't saying 60% failing grade. They're not saying that. They're saying on a 5-point scale, this kind of lands in the middle. I was a little lukewarm to it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the issue's not with the review. The issue is with the aggregate tool. The aggregate tool doesn't take any nuance. It just says a 3 out of 5 or whatever. I disagree. What do you disagree with? Saros will probably review better with game journalists because they're adding the shield and the self-revive, which will make things easier so less folks bounce off. I'm going to do a whole video, I think, on what Saros clearly learned from Returnal. They've made some wonderful choices. Really, really have. But be aware. Saros looks intense. It looks intense. Like they're giving you a little slightly of stronger footing, but that game's got teeth. I've played 110 hours of Returnal, and I've watched that Saros gameplay a couple of times, and I'm like, brother, this game's got teeth. You better watch yourself. Sure, yeah, they gave you a shield, and you can get a permanent upgrade, so you get one revive. You better watch yourself. This game's got teeth, boys. It's fast. It's intense. It's making Returnal look a little laid back. This is making Returnal look a little laid back, boys. I played a lot of Returnal. Tom Henderson says, Saros doesn't look appealing to me. It looks like it didn't even know what it wants to be. I like Tommy Hendy, but, you know, he can be wrong from time to time. It looked like it wanted to be a sequel to Returnal. What do you mean? It's so bad they gave you a shield. Yeah. I've seen plenty of 3.5s and 3.75s. Oh, wait, hang on. Lobo says, knowing that they score on a 5-point scale, they know that a 3 is a 6, 3.5 and 6 produce the same value. Well, we've had this discussion before. I don't think an outlet that scores on a 5-point scale gives a frick about Metacritic. I personally think if you give it a 3.5, you should the 3 out of 5, and Metacritic's going to show you on a website as a 60. If it was me, this is just me personally, I would submit a 100-point score as well, and I would say, well, anybody that comes to my review is going to see 3 out of 5 stars. But I don't want to be sitting on some website looking like I gave the game a failing grade when I didn't. That's misrepresenting me, and it's not intentional, but it's just the results, right? So I would contact Metacritic and say, hey, I would like to submit a 100-point score so that somebody clicks on my maybe I give it a 75. Well, somebody's going to click on my review. They're going to see 3 out of 5 stars. They're going to be like, well, that tracks, right? It's like they're giving it a middle-of-the-road score. They're not giving it an F, you know? But listen, it's their platform. I wouldn't want to be sitting on a site with a 60 when I'm like, I didn't give the game a failing grade. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. That's not terrible. It would look weird. I agree, Patrick. If somebody clicks on it and sees a 75 and they come to your website and they see the 3 out of 5 stars, they may be like, that's kind of weird. Everybody's got their own way of scoring, and the 5-point scale. The reason I don't like the 5-point scale is I think games are far too nuanced to give something a score out of 5. There's too much going on. There's graphics, performance, story, voice acting, combat, pacing, open world, systems, RPG elements, length of game, pacing. You got all these things, and you're like, out of 5, I give it a 3. Like, what? How can you even represent all the pieces and parts of the game on a 5-point scale? Like, what? It's not a meal that you ate, and you're like, yeah, I give it a 3.5 or a 4. I'll eat that again. It's a video game that you spent 50 or 60 hours in, and you're going to score it out of 5? Like, I think the 5-point scale just doesn't allow for nearly enough nuance. If you're just going to end up with a 3.75 out of 5, then just use a 100-point scale. I think the 5-point scale is too small for the vastness of what can go well or poorly in a video game. It's the enormity of a game to be whittled down to a 5-point scale. It's like, huh? The game could be phenomenal in all categories, and you're like, I felt like the story was a little flat. and the open world got a little repetitious. But you praised everything else. The 5-point scale doesn't even remotely represent the nuance of the review. Does that make sense? It's like, okay, so it's a 5-point scale, and you're like, praise, 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 minor criticism, 3 out of 5. Huh? Like, what the, like, I don't think it actually, this is just my opinion. I don't think the 5-point scale adequately represents all the work the person put into writing their review. I think they betray their own work. I do. This is just my opinion, but I think you spent 50 hours in a game and you meticulously took notes and you wrote a thoughtful, nuanced, measured review, and then you put a 5-star system on it and you give it a 3 out of 5. It betrays all your work. It's like, what? All that thought, all that nuance, all your thoughtfulness about different systems and moments and this, that, and the third, and then you're going to score it out of 5? What? I agree. The top 100 games of the year fit between 4 and 5. It provides no useful information to me. There's no room for coloring outside the lines. Based on how we've interacted and engaged with scoring systems for that entirety of our lives, I think anyone would reasonably believe that a 3 out of 5 is a good score. Oh, I don't think. Yeah, you see a 3 out of 5 and you're like, that doesn't seem like a very good score. But it's like they didn't, again, you've got no room. You're like, well, a 4 is really good. It's like right next to 5, and a 5 is excellent. So, you know, I had some criticisms. I got to give it a 3. It's like, goodness gracious. There's no room. It's too small. It's too small. To me, it's like, it would be like telling somebody the epic tale in The Lord of the Rings is so magnificent, you gotta read it, and then they go and read the Cliff's Notes. I think that's slap-worthy. I don't think this physical violence is good, but man, I'd slap the dickens out of you. No pun intended, since one of the most famous authors in existence is Dickens. But like, you're like, oh, Lord of the Rings is just this epic tale, and then somebody reads the Cliff's Notes. It's like, this isn't going to do any justice to the story whatsoever. And it's like, you take all the time to write this review, it's paragraph after paragraph of thoughtful analysis, and then you score it out of 5. You reduce it down to like this stars on like these little teeny images. Like, what? I think they betray their own work. I know that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but I think they betray their own work. You put an awful lot of time into that review. You put an awful lot of effort and thought into that review. And then somebody's going to be like, oh, 3 out of 5? Oh, that game probably isn't very good. You know what I mean? You're like, no, it's actually a pretty good game. I just had some minor gripes about the open world and the story. And they're like, you gave it a 3 out of 5. What do you mean? That doesn't sound like a very good game to me. Well, what? You removed all nuance. You removed all your work, and you gave a number. Like, now, numbers in general don't communicate nuance either. But like an 82 would be like, oh, sounds like it's decent. Sounds like it's pretty good. It's not up at the top with all these other Game of the Year nominations, but an 82 or an 80, that sounds pretty good. They've got some criticism. They took some points off. 3 out of 5? The heck? If I see a restaurant with a 3 out of 5 overall, or a product on Amazon with a 3 out of 5 overall, I'm like, that thing sucks. Like, go buy a toaster or a vacuum cleaner with 3 out of 5 stars on Amazon. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. You're like, oh gosh. Because there's less nuance to a vacuum cleaner and a toaster. Does it do a good job? Like, products that are more utilitarian, I think it's easier to score like that. Like, the nuance and the size and the enormity of a video game being whittled down to like a 5-point system, it's like, I really don't think that gives a good representation of everything the devs did and then everything the reviewers did. I am very, very much against the 5-point system. We've had this debate many, many times. and I think this is maybe my best argument that I've ever made about this. I really do feel like you're squashing hundreds and thousands of hours worth of work in a game, and then maybe even close to hundreds of hours of your own work. You didn't just play the game for 40 or 50 hours. You thought, you wrote, maybe you recorded a video, and then you're taking it down to a 5-point system. It's like, goodness gracious, there's so much more to a game than can be fit that can fit into that score. I think the biggest problem with reviews is that I don't think they reflect how gamers interact with games. Regular gamers don't have a deadline to play a game. They also don't have to appeal to public consensus. I don't know if a lot of the reviewers feel like they. You think that a lot of the reviewers feel like they have to appeal to public consensus? When breaking from public consensus generally gets you a lot of attention? Eurogamer gave Silksong 5 stars, Expedition 33 4 stars, and Yōtei 3, 180 and 60. That's a gulf of distance between each game. That's so concisely stated, Shiva. No one would say that, like, Yōtei's a 60, Silksong's a 100. Like you're saying, that's a gulf. It's like, wow. One looks like you think it's bad, and then another you think is perfect. And it's like, generally, that's not what they probably think. They probably think excellent, good, decent, not perfect, okay, bad. It's like the numbers don't leave. It's like you're. It's kind of like when you do a gradient in Photoshop and you have like black to white and it slowly transitions. You can see like all these the finer granules of color change. This is like black, gray, white. It's like, that's all you can pick. You know, how do you want your steak done? Burnt, medium, bleeding. Oh gosh, none of that. I don't think any of that sounds good. You know, it's like you gotta have more spectrum for something of this size and this level of nuance. I think you have to have more spectrum in how you score something. I think the 5-point system's got to go, and I'm not even arguing from Metacritic anymore. I used to argue this from Metacritic, and people are like, well, it's an aggregate tool. They don't answer to Metacritic. No, yeah, you're right. They answer to themselves, and they do all this work, and they write all these thoughts, and they take all this time, and then they're like 3 out of 5. And it's like, that doesn't represent anything that you did. It doesn't represent the game. It doesn't represent your thoughtfulness, your nuance, or your analysis. It's too reductionist and small. It can't contain everything you thought and said. It's too small. It's like trying to read Cliff's Notes about Lord of the Rings. It's never going to capture the enormity of the story. You just aren't. Okay, we got to switch to Hades in a little bit. I'm going to quickly run upstairs, and then we're going to get into it. Thank you guys so much for being here and supporting. Thank you so much for the support yesterday and this week. Things have really turned around for us, and it's because of you guys, and thank you for that. All right, I'll be right back. I'm back. Okay. All right. We're going to have to switch gears here. Oh, wait, I missed something while I was gone. JC rounded us out to 470, and then another one came in from Mick Pratt, VIP. I give this renewal message a 3 out of 5. Thank you for that, gifted JC. Sorry, I didn't mean to miss the gifted. Let's we should try to hit the 500 before tomorrow. All right. And that way we can just work on stretch. You guys want on a Friday? That's golden. That's golden. All right, let me change the thumbnail on the Yōtei one. Okay. All right. Okay. Isn't there a Little Nightmares 3 demo as well? They've got a preload date, game size and preload date revealed. Okay. I went to do the red dot for going live on on X, and it did the angry face. You play the demo, you can tell it was a different developer, not in a good way. Wait, Little Nightmares 3 is a different developer? I don't think I caught that or knew that. Yes, that's the team making Reanimal. Little Nightmares went on to make Reanimal. That's unfortunate. Display VSync. Graphics quality high. Gameplay. Yeah, I don't think I need to change anything for Hades. Okay. How can I duplicate this? I don't know how to do this in OBS. Why can't I paste it as a... Okay, so I tell you what we'll do. Add source, browser. We'll do member display for gameplay, and then we'll there we go. And we'll just do just the total. Okay. And I should be able to yeah, okay. I should be able to work it. Same difference. All right. All right, I'm putting a link in chat to the gameplay. And if you guys come over and watch gameplay, it's super, super helpful to me. Thank you very much. Thanks so much for checking out this video. This is going to be me diving into Hades 2 gameplay. I did play it in early access for about an hour when it first came out just to test it out. This is Hades 2 1.0. So this is basically the Hades 2 release date. And I liked Hades 1 gameplay. I'm very excited to check out Hades 2 gameplay. So if you're watching this later, I'm going to dive right in. I was live streaming this, and we are always working on various things. So I'm going to start brand new fresh with it being 1.0. I want to see kind of how everything works right from Jump Street. I'm going to end the previous stream and bring folks over with Redirect. We did a Ghost of Yotei review round.